The pink-haired maid lethally slashes a dark-haired man, a sudden sounding from him. Her black-haired target lies dead on the rooftop as the pink-haired maid walks away. A brutal wound across his neck spills blood, marking the dark-haired man's final moments. High above the futuristic city, the pink-haired maid stands alone on a skyscraper's edge. Her boot steps firmly on the ledge while her maid dress flutters in the wind. Gazing at the full moon, the pink-haired maid expresses her deep dissatisfaction with her life. Despite her cold exterior, a flicker of unexpected emotion appears in the pink-haired maid's eyes. Tears stream down her face as the pink-haired maid questions the source of her sorrow. The vast, glowing city skyline reflects the weight of her long and difficult journey. A heavy silence falls over the city as the narrative shifts to a new chapter. She reflects on the harsh reality of returning to a life defined by suffering. From a dark mansion at night, frantic commands to kill echo through the cold air. A grotesque officer screams for blood while the pink-haired maid flees through the facility. During a brutal training session, the pink-haired maid is commanded to abandon all compassion. The officer watches the fighters, reinforcing that their lives have no purpose beyond lethal combat. Looming over his subjects, the officer claims that bloodlust is the only acceptable human desire. After penning a twin-tailed girl, the maid is reminded she is merely a living weapon. The pink-haired maid turns her back on the training yard, choosing to walk away. The twin-tailed girl desperately asks if the pink-haired maid is truly deserting her post. Stopping in her tracks, the pink-haired maid casts a somber look over her shoulder. She moves with blurring speed, leaving the stunned twin-tailed girl behind in the yard. Grappled by her peer, the pink-haired maid explains her boredom with their endless violence. She insists on leaving because there is nothing left for her in this hollow place. The twin-tailed girl warns her that escape is impossible and leads only to certain death. An officer blocks her path and angrily orders the pink-haired maid back to her training. With a sudden strike, the pink-haired maid punches the officer, a sharp thud echoing up. The twin-tailed girl gasps in shock at the pink-haired maid's blatant act of rebellion. As she runs, a nearby officer draws his sword to stop the defecting maid. The pink-haired maid disarms the officer with a powerful kick, sending his blade flying. The lead officer orders his men to eliminate the maid since she is now useless. Soldiers open fire with machine guns, but the pink-haired maid expertly dodges the golden bullets. She leaps from the metal railing, her boots clattering against the structure during her escape. Falling from the darkness, the pink-haired maid surprises the officer standing on the lower level. She delivers a crushing kick to the officer's face, instantly neutralizing him with one blow. Moving with practiced efficiency, the pink-haired maid draws a hidden dagger from beneath her skirt. Armed soldiers train their sights on her, their weapons ready to fire at any moment. Taking an officer hostage, she threatens his life before decisively slashing his throat. Gasping his final breaths, the dying officer asks her why she committed such a deed. She coldly notes he shouldn't have moved as soldiers close in on her position. From below, the twin-tailed girl shouts that there is no hiding from their pursuer's reach. Standing on the roof, the pink-haired maid vows to kill anyone who tries to follow. The twin-tailed girl falls silent, realizing the maid's resolve is far stronger than she imagined. With a final leap, the pink-haired maid disappears into the night, leaving the facility behind. Futuristic transport announcements confirm the timeline shift to several days before the current events. The pink-haired maid breathes heavily, showing the physical toll of her long and desperate escape. Slumping against a cold wall, she struggles to stay upright in the unfamiliar urban environment. Passing citizens look at her tattered maid outfit with confusion and thinly veiled judgment. Passers-by whisper amongst themselves, wondering if her strange attire is some sort of retro fashion. Cool comments suggest she is a derelict from the slums who has lost her way. The pink-haired maid walks into the heart of the bustling city, completely alone among strangers. Standing in a shadowed alleyway, the pink-haired maid stares into the oppressive urban darkness. Her breath comes in heavy, ragged gasps as the physical exhaustion of her escape mounts. She reflects on her journey, realizing that despite leaving her past, there is nothing here. She perceives common comforts like food and money as entirely devoid of any real significance. In her grim worldview, even the act of killing or living holds no measurable purpose anymore. The urban skyline looms overhead, reinforcing her belief that the world is a purposeless place. Sitting alone, the pink-haired maid questions why people desperately cling to their meaningless lives. A sudden high-pitched meow sounds as a small white cat unexpectedly approaches her in the alley. Her attention is captured by the small creature, and she slowly reaches out a trembling hand. Lifting the white kitten, the pink-haired maid wonders if it is truly just a simple animal. She gazes down at the tiny creature in her palms, noting how small and fragile it is. The animal licks her finger, and she is startled by the unexpected warmth of its living body. Looking into the cat's eyes, she wonders if it is also searching for a reason to exist. Her strength finally fails, and she slumps weakly against a cold wall in the dark alleyway. With a dull thud, the pink-haired maid collapses onto the hard ground, completely losing consciousness. A heavy silence returns to the alley as the kitten remains near her motionless, fallen form. The quiet is broken by a firm step as a brown leather boot enters the frame. A dark-haired man with a short beard stands over her, his expression unreadable in the shadows. He looks down at the collapsed girl in the maid outfit, his gaze lingering on her. Moving with caution, the bearded man reaches down toward the unconscious pink-haired maid on the ground. Sensing another presence nearby, he stops and realizes that someone is watching him from the dark. He lifts the maid onto his back, lamenting his inability to do anything more for her. Her eyes suddenly snap open as she regains consciousness, her vision blurred by the strange surroundings. A brown-haired woman welcomes her back to awareness, asking if she is finally feeling awake. The brown-haired woman explains that her father found her unconscious in the alley and brought her home. Reacting with instinct, the pink-haired maid lunges for a pair of scissors sitting on the table. She points the sharp blades at the stranger, demanding to know the brown-haired woman's identity. The brown-haired woman is frozen in shock as the cold metal is held against her neck. She introduces herself as Kiryu Mone and nervously offers a friendly greeting despite the threat. Kiryu Mone expresses her discomfort, asking the pink-haired maid to put the sharp scissors away. The pink-haired maid realizes the brown-haired woman lacks even the slightest hint of murderous intent. She lowers her guard and sits on the bed, watching the woman with cautious, wary eyes. Kiryu Mone asks for the pink-haired maid's name to establish some common ground between them. The pink-haired maid hesitates, struggling to find an answer to this simple but difficult question. Watching her closely, Kiryu Mone wonders if the maid is showing a faint, rare smile. The pink-haired maid quietly admits that she does not possess a name of her own. Kiryu Mone is surprised by the revelation and begins to think of a suitable name. The white cat suddenly leaps up, surprising the maid as it moves toward her on the bed. The kitten rubs its head against her hand, and she wonders why it is being so affectionate. Kiryu Mone points out that the small white kitten has clearly grown quite fond of her. She explains that the animal stayed faithfully by her side the entire time she was unconscious. The pink-haired maid notes that it is her first time seeing a cat in person before. Kiryu Mone realizes that they haven't given the small kitten a name to call it by either. She tells the maid that pets are part of the family and naming them is important. The two sit together on the floor while Kiryu Mone considers different names for their guests. She suggests the name Noah for the white kitten, thinking it sounds cute and fits well. A small chibi bubble shows Kiryu Mone worrying if her previous naming attempt was a bad pun. Kiryu Mone then proposes that the pink-haired maid should take the name Kanoa for herself. She laughs nervously and apologizes, explaining that she simply thought the name Kanoa suited her well. The pink-haired maid accepts the name, stating she is fine with whatever she is called. Kiryu Mone gleefully grants the pink-haired maid her new name, Kanoa, sealing their bond. A sharp, sudden sound from the doorway causes Kiryu Mone to look back in surprise. Sensing the girl is hungry, Kiryu Mone pulls Kanoa up and invites her to lunch. In the kitchen, the brown-haired mother prepares food and recounts finding Kanoa collapsed and unconscious. At the table, the father mentions hearing a kitten's meow as the family begins eating. The women warmly encourage Kanoa to enjoy the meal, praising the mother's excellent cooking skills. Cautious and alert, Kanoa looks at the meal and asks if it contains any hidden poison. The entire family is left speechless and bewildered by the girl's strange and dark question. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as Kiryu Mone reaches for her bowl to comfort Kanoa. To prove the food is safe, Kiryu Mone takes a large, fearless gulp of the soup. Smiling warmly, she invites Kanoa to try the meal now that its safety is confirmed. Kanoa reflects on Kiryu Mone's total lack of hesitation when checking the food for danger. Following their lead, Kanoa slowly lifts her bowl and takes a cautious sip of the soup. Her eyes widen in genuine shock as the unfamiliar flavors of the meal hit her tongue. Stunned by the experience, Kanoa quietly admits to herself that the food is actually delicious. Overjoyed by the compliment, Kiryu Mone giggles while Kanoa continues to eat with newfound focus. The mother apologizes for the modest meal, explaining the financial hardships of living in the slums. Tangled power lines hang between the aging and dilapidated buildings of the city's crowded slums. While the father laments their fall from the elite district, Kiryu Mone insists she loves their home. Munching on fish, Kanoa is confused by the mentions of the elite district and the slums. The bearded man looks at Kanoa with a mix of surprise and confusion at her ignorance. The city is divided, with Chuoku serving as the towering, glittering home for the wealthy elite. Below the high-rises lie the middle-class Nakaku and the impoverished, decaying streets of the slums. Kanoa wonders why the family is laughing and happy, despite their status as the city's poor. The father hangs his head, preparing to explain the source of their contentment to the girl. With a gentle smile, the mother explains that their happiness comes from simply being together. Kiryu Mone agrees, noting that being in the slums allows them to see their father daily. The father reflects on how they never shared such joyful, smiling meals before losing their status. Kanoa suddenly freezes, her expression darkening as she warns the family not to taste the food. A traumatic memory resurfaces, showing Kanoa as a child being forbidden from tasting her meager rations. The vision turns gruesome, depicting a command to consume nothing but blood and bone for strength. A grotesque, wide-eyed officer screams manically about the brutal and lethal nature of true eating. Shaken by the contrast, Kanoa wonders if sharing a meal is truly a reason to smile. A sudden rhythmic click sounds as heavy footsteps approach the family's modest home from outside. A loud boom echoes as men kick the door, shouting for Kiryu-san to open up immediately. Kanoa looks on in silence as the intruders threaten to break down the door with violence. The father rushes toward the door, protesting that the payment deadline is still a month away. A blonde-haired man with glasses laughs, demanding an immediate interest payment of 500,000 gold. Looming over the terrified father, the blonde man mocks his inability to cover the steep interest. The father argues against the change in terms, but the blonde man claims his boss changed his mind. With a cruel grin, the blonde man proposes taking the father's organs to settle the debt. Kiryu and her mother gasp in horror at the blonde man's barbaric and lethal demand. Guards seize the father as he pleads for mercy, reminding them he has a family to support. Kiryu desperately offers to work any job to pay the debt if they release her father. The blonde man leers at Kiryu, mockingly asking if she understands the implications of her offer. A sharp, rough grab sounds as the guard seize Kiryu while she screams to be released. The father and daughter cry out in despair while the father offers his own life instead. The mother begs to take her daughter's place as a guard carries the struggling girl away. A desperate cry for help is cut short by a sudden golden flash of lethal energy. Ugh, a pained groan escapes as blood sprays from a deep wound in the guard's neck. Standing amidst the ruins of the alleyway, the pink-haired maid remains silent and unreadable. Hovering over the fallen woman, Kanoa observes that the Kiryu family has stopped smiling. Looking deeply into Kiryu eyes, Kanoa asks if she truly hates current events. Trembling with tears in her eyes, Kiryu confirms that she is indeed terrified. Looking at his dead guard, the blonde man, realization that the maid has killed. A heavy silence falls over the group as the blonde loan shark stares in shock. The pink-haired maid softly speaks Kiryu name while gazing at her with concern. Kanoa stands tall, coldly noting that the blonde man has a very strange hairstyle. With a dark intensity in her eyes, Kanoa wonders if she should kill the man. A new figure with vibrant red hair appears as the story transitions through different worlds. Pointing toward the blonde man, Kanoa asks to kill him while Monet gasps in horror. Kiryu shouts a desperate refusal, horrified that Kanoa would even consider taking a life. Grabbing Kanoa's shoulders, Kiryu insists that killing for such a reason is strictly forbidden. Kanoa is bewildered by the restriction and asks if being forbidden from killing is in order. The two women stand together in the gray light, questioning the weight of a command. Kiryu stares with intense determination and confirms that she is officially ordering her not to kill. Turning away, the pink-haired maid looks out toward the aging buildings of the city slums. Kanoa reflects on the command, noting it is her first time receiving an order to spare lives. A sudden, sharp scuff sounds as Kanoa prepares to move against the remaining guards. Moving with blurring speed, Kanoa lunges forward to strike at her enemies without using lethal force. A pained arg escapes as Kanoa delivers a high, powerful kick to the guard's face. A soft whistle sounds as Kanoa effortlessly dodges a guard's desperate attempt to stab her. A choked ugh sounds as Kanoa strikes a guard, sending him reeling back in pain. A heavy thud echoes as a guard collapses to his knees before the small maid. Kanoa observes the guard's weapon, thinking that fighting under these restrictive conditions is quite difficult. The guard is shocked by her speed, realizing he cannot keep up with her movements. A quick dash sounds as a guard tries to ambush the pink-haired maid from behind. Crouching low, the suited guard lunges forward with his knife, hoping to land a lucky strike. Moving like a ghost, Kanoa sidesteps the blade, leaving the guard attacking empty air. Kiryu watches in disbelief, wondering how the girl is capable of such amazing feats. The blonde loan shark screams at his men, demanding to know why they struggle against a child. Looming with rage, the blonde man orders his guards to stop holding back and finish her. The guard panics, explaining that he isn't holding back, but the girl is simply too fast. Standing over the defeated men, Kanoa notes that there seems to be no end to them. A quick snap sounds as Kanoa wonders what her next move should be in this fight. Kanoa worries that her lack of non-lethal skill makes sparing these men much more difficult. A sharp metallic click sounds as Kanoa's hand hovers near the blade hidden at her waist. Kanoa struggles to find a way to win while obeying Monet's order not to kill. Deciding to fight barehanded, Kanoa resolves to take them down with single strikes to weak points. A crushing crack sounds as Kanoa delivers a lethal-looking blow to a guard's vital area. The blonde man stutters in terror, realizing his men cannot land a single blow on her. Kanoa reflects on her training, recalling that anyone who took a hit from her was finished. A memory of a screaming officer resurfaces, reminding her that she must never be hit. The officer explains that in their world, a single hit means the end of a life. Young Kanoa practices her lethal movements, striking with the precision of a trained and heartless killer. The repetitive command to kill echoes through her mind as she effortlessly defeats her training partners. A final, violent command to kill resonates through the dark void of her traumatic past memories. The dark truth is revealed. All who were struck by her training ended with broken necks. Returning to the present, Kanoa delivers a precise, lightning-fast strike to the guard's pressure point. The guard screams in agony while the blonde man realizes this fight is a cruel joke. A voice commands a complete halt and demands no further movement from the girl. Kanoa remains calm and focused as she stares at the man threatening her family. The blonde man laughs while pointing his handgun directly at the pink-haired maid. Panicked and weeping, Kiryumone screams for Kanoa to run away as fast as possible. A close-up reveals the intense, unshakable focus within Kanoa's eyes as she prepares to strike. Moving like a ghost, Kanoa lunges forward and delivers a crushing strike to her attacker. A pained groan escapes the loan shark as Kanoa lands a powerful, glowing blow. Kanoa looks on with surprise as her target manages to withstand her initial physical strike. Despite the pain, the blonde man sneers while sweating profusely from the sudden impact. Clutching his bruised arm, the man is shocked by her lethal intent to kill him. Action lines blur the scene as Kanoa prepares to finish her opponent with overwhelming speed. Performing a graceful mid-air flip, Kanoa disarms the man and kicks his weapon away effortlessly. A black car screeches to a halt, and a mysterious man watches the unfolding battle. Kanoa delivers a high-intensity kick that sends the loan shark reeling back into the shadows. The blonde man clutches his chest in agony, unable to believe her terrifying strength. Kanoa reflects on her restraint, realizing she held back too much against such a target. Shouting insults, the enraged loan shark lunges forward in a desperate and clumsy final attempt. A sudden, blinding flash of energy knocks Kanoa back, causing her to cry out. The blonde man stammers as his boss, the gray-suited man, suddenly stands right behind him. The boss points his cane at Kanoa, questioning the meaning behind her violent and disruptive actions. Narrative text confirms that Kanoa was completely unable to detect the mysterious man's arrival nearby. The gray-suited man looms over the kneeling girl, pointing his cane directly at her head. Looking up with glowing red eyes, Kanoa wonders about the true identity of this powerful man. The tip of the boss cane rests inches from Kanoa's face as she remains frozen. Shaken, Kanoa admits to herself that she could not even see his lightning-fast physical movements. The boss maintains his dominant position, keeping the maid pinned down by his sheer presence. Kanoa realizes the man is incredibly strong as a dark red aura begins to surround him. Observing his perfect stance, the pink-haired maid notes that he leaves absolutely no openings for attack. Looking deeply into his eyes, Kanoa desperately tries to find a way to strike her opponent. The boss mocks her fading energy and asks what has happened to her previous strength. While the boss offers to strike first, Kanoa realizes it is impossible to win without killing. Kanoa accepts her fate, rising to her feet while her eyes burn with intense red light. An extreme close-up depicts Kanoa's red eye, signaling her return to her full, murderous power. The boss is visibly shaken as Kanoa unleashes a torrent of dark, swirling red energy nearby. A twisted smile crosses the man's face as he finds her newfound power to be interesting. Noticing her glowing eyes, the man wonders if the girl is actually one of his kind. Laughing manically, the red-eyed man asks if she is truly one of the professional assassins. Kanoa is left speechless and bewildered as she looks at the man's glowing red eyes. The dark truth settles in as Kanoa recognizes the unmistakable aura of a fellow elite assassin. The man demands to know the specific facility that trained her to be such a killer. Visions of rival training facilities like Enyo and Ayakis flash through the minds of both fighters. With a chilling grin, the man identifies himself as a graduate of the men-only Thanatos facility. Kanoa realizes a survivor from Thanatos is even faster and stronger than those from Ayakis. The pink-haired maid remains alert and cautious, fully understanding the gravity of her current situation. Kanoa reasons that he isn't a direct pursuer, as he wouldn't use such indirect, messy methods. His eyes glowing with murderous intent, the man again demands she name her specific facility. Kanoa looks toward the ground, her expression turning somber amidst the dark shadows of the alley. In a quiet and defeated tone, the pink-haired maid reveals that she is from Ayakis. The boss expresses disbelief that an elite-ranking girl from Ayakis would be in the slums. Standing amidst the filth, the man questions why an elite killer would live in the slums. The light brown-haired man observes that she does not seem to be acting on any specific orders. He notes that she is sparing her opponent's lives and has even interacted with that local family. Monet looks on with distress as the man stands behind her and the crying family in the city. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the man's eyes widen in genuine, frantic shock at her presence. He asks the pink-haired maid if she is indeed the rumored escapee he has heard so much about. Kanoa questions the significance of his claim while warning him against trying to take away her hard-earned freedom. With eyes glowing red, she vows that she will kill him no matter what happens next. The man urges her to calm down, noting her intense killing intent and denying any organizational affiliation. He reveals a hidden blade within his cane, claiming that the organization is actually his enemy. A sudden soft gasp sounds as the pink-haired maid looks at him with an expression of pure confusion. He declares that he is an escapee just like her while facing her with his drawn sword. A sudden, sharp click sounds as Kanoa stares at him with an expression of total bewildered shock. He identifies her as Tia, the assassin known as Holy Mother's Tears, surprised she is still alive. Turning to face her directly, the man asks if he is correct in identifying her as Tia. Looking on from the background, Monine and the others wonder about the meaning of their tense exchange. Defiantly, the pink-haired girl shouts that her real name is Kanoa, rejecting her past codename. Chuckling to himself, the man repeats her name while reflecting on her unexpected change in personality. He finds her current state intriguing, still referring to the elite assassin by her former codename Tia. A sudden quiet whoosh sounds as the wind blows through the empty, desolate city streets. Kanoa claims that everything is pointless and she was simply bored with her previous life's lack of meaning. He calls her naive for being bored while preparing to strike her with his unsheathed sword. A sudden, sharp swing sounds as he tells her she understands nothing of the world's true nature. He explains that seeking something always requires a sacrifice, his eyes glowing red with predatory intent. A sudden, soft scuff sounds as the maid turns to find a discarded weapon nearby. Reaching down, she decides to sacrifice anything necessary while she grips the hilt of a katana. Raising the sword, Kanoa declares her intention to kill every single one of them. A sudden, loud clang sounds as their blades meet in a flurry of fast, violent strikes. Monet watches the blurred combat from a distance, unable to see exactly what is happening. He mocks her one-edged sword, while Kanoa realizes he is predicting every single one of her attacks. He calls her senses good but unpolished, laughing as he declares that she is far too slow. A sudden, quick whoosh sounds as the man vanishes, leaving Kanoa swinging her sword at thin air. Moni calls out in terror as she finds a blade suddenly pressed against her own neck. The man smirks, noting that he could kill the girl in an instant if he so desired. Terrified for her friend, the pink-haired maid begs him to stop what he is doing. He tells her that his actions depend on whether she truly wants to protect the Kiryu family. Holding the sword to Monet's throat, the man stands tall while Kanoa watches in helpless horror. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the girl realizes the gravity of the situation she is in. He repeats that her cooperation is the only way to ensure the safety of the family. An underling questions the choice of ally, but the boss sharply commands him to shut up. A sudden, quick thud sounds as the man with glasses trembles in fear of his master's power. Kanoa asks why he would want an escapee to work for him, finding the request completely meaningless. He clarifies that her value lies in her skills as an assassin and her potential usefulness. She reiterates that she is done with the act of committing murders that serve no purpose. The man sharply retorts that what he is proposing is not meaningless in the slightest. He explains that her compensation for the work will be directed toward the safety of the Kiryu family. A sudden, sharp click sounds as the girl and the family process the terms of his threat. Against a white background, the question is posed whether she will choose to save this family. He presents a choice between her freedom and the family's lives, defining what it means to truly sacrifice. Standing amidst falling white feathers, the man holds his blade ready while awaiting her final decision. Monet screams for him to stop, refusing to let Kanoa be drawn back into a life of assassination. Pleading desperately, the brown-haired man begs for Monet and Kanoa's safety while offering to work. Standing amidst the urban sprawl, Kanoa wonders why this new family cares so much for her. Pointing his cane, the gray-suited boss ignores the debt while Moan watches him in stunned silence. A menacing close-up of the boss's red eye reveals his true desire for Kanoa's lethal abilities. The pink-haired maid looks away, questioning why the mysterious man has a sudden need for her. Feathers drift through a dark void as a memory echoes, claiming Kanoa is a weapon for killing. The haunting narrative text explains that her drive to kill is fueled by her own primal instinct. Looming with a manic grin, the boss declares that the path onwards is forged through her strikes. Looking down with sadness, Kanoa asks why he needs someone who is merely a heartless killing weapon. A bold statement in a white bubble sharply counters her self-perception, insisting she is not a weapon. The boss tells her to use her talents to reveal a new path as they stand together. Confused by his vague words, the pink-haired maid asks what kind of path he is referring to. With a dramatic gesture, the boss proclaims she must find the path of life amidst falling feathers. Kanoa is deeply moved by the concept, wondering what it means to follow the path of life. The boss advises her to live by using her unique talents to protect what matters most. Smiling calmly, the man promises she will find the meaning she seeks by protecting her new family. A bead of sweat rolls down Kanoa's cheek as she processes the man's surprisingly profound advice. A dark, feathered silhouette looms over the scene, while a voice notes that the situation is intriguing. Parting her lips, Kanoa softly confirms that she understands the choice she must now make for everyone. Looking horrified, Monet shouts Kanoa's name as she realizes the maid is agreeing to leave with him. Kanoa sets a firm condition, demanding the boss promise never to harm Monet or her family members. The boss smiles in satisfaction, agreeing that the negotiation for her service is now officially settled. A sudden, quick scuff sounds as the man adjusts his grip on his ornate snake-headed cane. Monet rushes forward and clings to Kanoa, crying out that she wants to go with her. Grabbing her friend tightly, the brown-haired woman refuses to let Kanoa face that unknown dangers alone. Closing her eyes in pain, Kanoa explains that she cannot take her along to such danger. Kanoa worries Monet's presence would hinder her fighting, while Monet asks if they will ever meet again. Shouting with desperation, Monine insists she doesn't want to lose the friend she has just found. Monet tearfully notes they finally became friends, leaving the pink-haired maid stunned by the word's weight. Looking into her eyes, Monet asks why Kanoa is sacrificing so much for people she barely knows. Kanoa turns her head slightly, her gaze softening as she reflects on the kindness she has received. With a gentle expression, Kanoa recalls how they gave her delicious food and worried about her welfare. Monet and her father stare in shock, taken aback by the simple reason for Kanoa's deep loyalty. A hand reaches out as Monet explains that showing basic kindness to someone is perfectly normal behavior. Hugging her friend again, Monine insists they were only doing what any decent person would do. Kanoa admits she never knew what normal was, as their kindness was a first-time experience for her. Smoking a cigarette, the boss orders his subordinate to hurry and get in the waiting black car. A soft whistle sounds as Kanoa and Monet stand back to back, preparing for their inevitable, painful parting. Monet takes Kanoa's hand and asks for one last favor before she leaves with the mysterious boss. With tears in her eyes, Monet begs Kanoa to promise she will come back and visit daily. Monet jokingly threatens to follow her if Kanoa fails to show her cheerful face to the family. Kanoa looks back at the boss, who waits impatiently near the car while smoke curls around him. The boss rejects the idea, ordering his men to demolish the family's rundown house immediately. Kanoa's eyes flare with red light as she reminds the man of his promise to protect them. The boss explains that moving between districts often triggers government monitoring, necessitating a new arrangement. Standing tall, Monine offers to find a new home and work for the maid's father instead. In exchange for her help, Monet asks the boss to properly take care of all Kanoa's needs. A pained escapes Monet as she realizes the house is being cleared for demolition by morning. The scene shifts to the aging rooftops of the slums, overlooking the buildings where they once lived. Cradling the small cat, Monet tells Kanoa that she must take Noah along as a companion. Kenny sighs, wondering how many more people she plans to add to the group. Kenny tells her to ask his subordinates for any items needed from her rundown house. Monet joyfully thanks him while holding the cat, as her father looks on with relief. Monet shouts packing instructions regarding cosmetics while her father advises her that she should leave the jacket behind. Kanoa asks if it is really okay for Monet and the others to come with her. Kenny tells her not to misunderstand, clarifying that his actions are not for her sake. Staring back with confusion, the pink-haired maid wonders what the man's true intentions might be. Standing tall, Kenny proclaims that his goal is for him to rule over this entire country. Reflected in shadows, Kanoa somberly realizes she has ended up back in hell once again. Kenny promises to show her how to live so she finds the meaning she seeks. Kanoa contemplates finding a way to live while standing alone in the warm sunset glow. Narrative text describes Chiwaku, a district where the powerful bask in greed and immense wealth. Text reveals Kenny is a mafia leader who rose to the top through illegal business practices. Monet is amazed by the massive Ares Corporation building, wondering if it is truly all right to live in a place that feels like a dream come true. A sudden quick scuff sounds as Monet's father notes this is better than their previous house. Monet notes how bright and warm the place is, mentioning the many rooms before asking Kanoa which one she would like to use. A soft hug sounds as Monet invites Kanoa to share a room so they won't be lonely and can have fun together. Kanoa is bewildered by concepts like fun and loneliness, despite the presence of many empty rooms. Surrounded by flowers, Moan joyfully settles the matter, declaring they will stay in the same room. A sudden quick click sounds as two people watch a figure entering through the doorway. The suited man informs Kanoa that Kenny is calling for her and tells her to follow. Looking up with curiosity, the pink-haired maid wonders why the boss is summoning her now. A sudden quick beep sounds as a digital card glowing with blue light displays the code B5. Kanoa walks down the quiet hallway, following the suited man toward an unknown and mysterious meeting. A sudden mechanical whir sounds as the elevator doors slide open, revealing the path ahead to Kanoa. A sharp escapes Kanoa as the scene blurs with the impact of sudden, violent action. A painful arg sounds as a man collapses on the floor of a large training room. Kenny asks if she has arrived before ordering his man to give an item to Kanoa. A sudden, quick scuff sounds as the suited man hands Kanoa a futuristic, glowing electronic device. Holding the device, the pink-haired maid wonders what such a sophisticated item is doing there. Kenny explains there are many ways to acquire gear without stealing from Iakis, as Eris maintains collaborators all over the world. Looking at the item, Kanoa identifies it as the fourth dimension compact cloud and notes it did not exist during her time in the organization. Kenny observes that the pass and the GPS are still in their factory settings and tells her to take a look. A sudden, quick click sounds as Kanoa attaches the compact device to her belt while staying silent. Looking down with focus, the pink-haired maid prepares herself for the boss's next difficult challenge. Abstract speed lines fill the scene, conveying a sense of rapid movement and building combat tension. A sudden, quick beep sounds as the electronic device on her belt begins to glow brightly. A sudden, sharp shh sounds as a glowing blue katana is drawn with incredible speed and skill. Kenny notes she is weak to resistance, creating a major handicap in her close combat abilities. Kenny concludes she chose a weapon that widens the gap between her and the target, noting she is smarter than she looks. Kenny believes even a combined force of gangs and mafia would pose no problem for her. A sudden, quick scuff sounds as Kenny notes that despite her power, she is still quite young. A sudden, quick beep sounds as Kenny questions if she is ready to face a truly skilled killer. A sudden, quick scuff sounds as Kenny draws a gun, surprising Kanoa as he aims it directly. A sharp cry sounds as Kanoa's red eyes flare with intensity at the sudden lethal threat. A sudden, loud bang sounds as a bullet is fired, cutting through the air toward the maid. A sudden, quick shh sounds as Kanoa slices through the air, miraculously cutting the bullet in half. Surprised by her skill, Kenny asks if she even managed to cut the bullet and can actually see the projectile's trajectory. Kanoa explains that as long as she can look into her opponent's sight, she can calculate the trajectory and devise a method to cut it without risking her blade breaking. In the silence, Kanoa looks at the man with glowing red eyes and asks if he was testing her. Kenny lets out a weary sigh as he watches the pink-haired maid recover from his test. A hand touches a digital terminal and a sudden sharp shh sounds as a holographic interface activates. Kenny acknowledges her great instincts but warns that she still has a long way to go, urging her not to slack on her training. Walking through the training room, the man tells her to view the others as teammates rather than enemies, strictly forbidding her from killing them. Looking down with a somber expression, Kanoa promises to try her best not to kill them, though she admits it is not something she is used to. Kenny instructs her that if anyone does not want to die, they should speak up before they begin as he accepts her terms. A sudden quick click sounds as Togashi operates a complex array of monitors, analyzing data while Kanoa remains focused on her task. With a towel draped over his shoulders, Kenny asked Togashi to reveal the results of the maid's performance numbers. A sudden quick click sounds as Togashi's fingers fly across the keyboard, processing the final measurements of her abilities. Looking uneasy, the black-haired man notes there is a lot to consider, prompting a look of genuine surprise from Kenny. A digital chart labeled ND appears as Togashi explains that the display represents her true worth and potential. Staring at the screen in disbelief, the man confesses that he has never seen such high measurements before in his career. As Kanoa stands alone against the vibrant sunset, Togashi thinks to himself that she is most likely a monster in human form. The scene shifts to the bustling city where the Eris Corporation building towers, as Monet loudly asks if he is truly serious. Looking at her friend with a raised eyebrow, Monet asks the pink-haired maid if she really lacks any other outfits besides her uniform. Kanoa looks back with a neutral gaze, admitting that she doesn't have other clothes, though she adds that it doesn't really matter. A sudden, quick scuff sounds as the brown-haired woman takes Kanoa's hand, determined to lead her toward a new experience. Kanoa reflects on the ordinary lives of adults and children around her, observing their simple happiness from a distance. Seeing Monine reach out with a bright smile, the maid realizes that she has found something precious in her new friend. Walking side by side toward the bright city lights, Kanoa feels a sense of warmth that she has never experienced before. In a clothing store, Monet asks for Kanoa's opinion on a stylish black outfit, leaving the maid speechless. Monet excitedly holds up a frilly dress, noting it is the same outfit worn by a famous idol. Smiling joyfully, the brown-haired girl asks Kanoa what she thinks of another dress, while the maid remains stoically silent. At the counter, Monine places a large pile of clothes down, apologizing to the clerk for purchasing such a massive quantity. Looking at the digital interface at the register, the pink-haired maid asks with confusion what the glowing item is. Moni explains that the item is an ID card that can also be used to make electronic payments for their purchases. Reaching out, the brown-haired woman asks Kanoa to borrow her hand to demonstrate how the technology works. A sudden mechanical whir sounds as the ID card is scanned against the terminal as Monet guides her through the process. Staring at the screen in surprise, Moni lets out an amazed exclamation as she realizes the card has been successfully processed. Approaching the group, Kenny flatly states that there obviously wouldn't be an ID card for someone in her position. Kenny explains that an assassin typically has no need for an ID, but promises that he will prepare a proper one for her later. A sudden, quick scuff sounds as Kenny tells them to stop fooling around and get going, while Maureen shouts his name. Turning back with an impatient look, the man asks if she has anything new she wants to complain about now. Putting her hands together in a pleading gesture, Maureen sheepishly asks the boss if he could lend her some money. Both Kenny and Kanoa stare at her in stunned silence, a bead of sweat rolling down the man's face at the bold request. The scene returns to the gleaming facade of the Eris Corporation building as it stands prominently under the bright sky. Inside a high-tech training room, Kanoa stands within a scanning chamber as a sudden, mechanical whir sounds. Looking on from behind the glass, Moni asks the boss if performing such a clandestine scan is against the law. Kenny counters by asking if she would prefer that a runaway assassin visit a government office to register her details. Laughing nervously, the brown-haired woman admits that his reasoning makes perfect sense given the dangerous circumstances. Togashi announces that the scanning is finished as the digital monitors display a completed status for her ability stats. Stepping out of the chamber, Kenny asks the maid what specific name and age she plans to use for her new identity. Looking down thoughtfully, the pink-haired girl estimates that her age is likely 15 or perhaps 16 years old. A close-up of Kanoa's eye highlights her focus as Kenny presses her for the choice of a new surname. Turning toward her friend, the girl calmly states that she believes the name Kiryu Kanoa will be perfectly fine. Monet is completely taken aback, loudly asking if the maid truly intends to use the same surname as her own. Kanoa admits with a blunt expression that she simply did not want to waste any more time thinking about a last name. A new stat chart appears, and Moni thinks to herself that she is still incredibly happy despite the unusual situation. Staring at the data screens, the technician ominously notes that the girl is most likely a monster based on the results. Togashi lists her stats across various categories, noting they are all at the highest level and even immeasurable in certain areas. Inside the gym, Kenny stands in silent thought with a towel draped around his neck. Kenny instructs the black-haired technician to reset the stats to normal, which Togashi accepts with hesitation. A lighter sparks to life as Togashi notes her immeasurable potential and asks if the boss has seen it. Standing by the window at sunset, the blonde man lights a cigarette while looking at the city skyline. A weary breath escapes his lips as a sudden, sharp shh sounds from the exhaled smoke. Watching his reflection, Kenny concludes that her unexpected growth allows them to accelerate their current operational plans. In a dark alleyway, a mysterious figure confirms that someone named Tyr has officially survived. A man in a hat notes she is with the problematic Kenny, while Tyr remains settled. A sudden, quick clink sounds as the blue-haired boy manipulates a small stick in his mouth. Looking down with a cold gaze, the blue-haired boy declares they will begin by eliminating Tyr. The man in the hat repeats that Kenny is problematic while Tyr prepares for his next move. Jumping from a rooftop, the blue-haired boy looks at the moon and mutters about holy tears. The scene shifts as the blue-haired boy walks away into the shadows of the quiet city. Turning with a wicked smile, the boy vows to definitely get rid of the person named Tyr. Inside the training facility, men perform sit-ups as the count reach 158. Instructors demand more heart while men box and lift weights, urging them to reach for higher levels. A sudden, quick scuff sounds as a bald man practices his striking movements in the gym. Standing ready in her training gear, Kanoa remains silent while preparing for a sparring match. The bald man licks his lips, and preparing to lunge forward, the scarred man begins to declare his intentions during the fight. A sudden, sharp thud sounds as the bald man attacks while shouting about his growing excitement. Moving with blinding speed, Kanoa surprises her opponent by landing directly on top of his head. The man shouts in surprise as Kanoa acrobatically flips through the air to evade his grasp. A sudden, loud crack sounds as Kanoa delivers a powerful kick to the bald man's face. Trainees watch in shock as the girl easily defeats a former world martial arts champion. Kenny arrives, noting the fallen man was highly skilled, which earns a surprised look from Kanoa. Kanoa explains she simply knocked him out before he could do anything strange or inappropriate. Letting out a weary sigh, the blonde man closes his eyes in response to her bluntness. Drinking from a nutrition pouch, the pink-haired girl asks if the boss requires something from her. Kenny remarks on her cold personality while the maid simply asks for the purpose of his visit. With eyes glowing red, the man informs Kanoa that he is assigning her very first job. Accepting the news calmly, the pink-haired girl asks who she is expected to kill for him. Angrily, Kenny warns her not to kill thoughtlessly or she will become just like their enemies. Looking up with confusion, the pink-haired girl wonders what he means by being just like them. A trainee notes the heavy scent of sweat as he checks on the unconscious bald man. Turning away, the blonde man tells the pink-haired maid to follow him out of the room. Kenny leads the way, promising to teach the naive girl about the reality of the outside world. Looking out at the Sunset City skyline, the man asks for her opinion on the view. Kenny asks if the country seems perfect while Kanoa stands beside him in the golden light. Kenny describes the money, objects, love, and peace in society while city scenes show people shopping. Kenny notes that people believe they possess democratic rights within this seemingly perfect and stable country. Looking toward the horizon, the man continues his explanation of the social structure to the girl. The wind blows through the pink-haired girl's hair as she looks out at the distant towers. Close-up of Kanoa's face reveals her belief that none of these societal concepts hold any meaning. Honestly, the girl admits she cannot even grasp the significance of what he is trying to explain. Kenny observes that many young people fail to understand the importance of having freedom of choice. Kenny reflects on how being in an organization that controlled information kept her in the dark. Kenny explains that the country underwent a major constitutional reform and restructuring several years ago. Narration describes how politicians used elections to win over citizens who were tired of the old system. The scene transitions to a grand interior, noting that public opinion was easily manipulated by the government. Kenny states that the true goal of those with absolute power was to obtain more of it. Facing the city, Kenny explains that citizens are denied the right to choose their own leadership. Kenny describes how greed intensified after the constitutional reform, while the pink-haired girl listens intently. Against a stormy sky, Kenny asserts that the powerful decided to kill anyone who obstructed them. Kenny questions her past as an assassin for the organization while she gazes away in silence. A sudden, small click sounds as Kenny pulls a cigarette from a red pack of smokes. Standing before flames, Kenny explains she was used as an assassin to eliminate any inconvenient political enemies. Kanoa asks if he means the organization, but the blonde man clarifies it is not them. A sudden, weary sigh sounds as Kenny and Kanoa stand overlooking the sunset city skyline together. Kenny clarifies he is talking about the leaders of the country, specifically the nation's first president. Narration describes a dictator who disguised absolute control and personal gain under the pretense of democracy. Kenny reveals the current president is actually the one running the organization Kanoa was once in. Kanoa looks down with a neutral expression as she processes the revelation about the organization's leader. Kenny notes her lack of reaction and asks if she believes the mission is to destroy them. A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Kenny crushes his finished cigarette while denying that destruction is his goal. Looking back at the cityscape, Kenny explains that their actual mission is something slightly different than destruction. A large red speech bubble against a white background declares that the mission is to kill the president. Lying awake in a blue-tinted room, the pink-haired girl stares silently at the ceiling above her. A small gray cat sleeps peacefully on the bed next to the girl as she remains awake. A sudden, soft Z sounds from the pink-haired girl as she finally drifts off to sleep. Close-up of Kanoa's face shows her looking off with a focused, serious gaze while resting. Reflecting on her proximity to Monine, the girl watches her friend sleep beside her in the dark. Kanoa recalls the blonde man's declaration about their mission to assassinate the president while she lies in bed. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as the pink-haired girl sits up in bed, looking toward the side. Standing in the dark, Kanoa looks down at the sleeping brown-haired girl with a silent, heavy expression. Kanoa remembers Monet's warning that killing someone for any reason is fundamentally wrong and shouldn't be done. In a flashback, Monet tearfully pleads with the maid to come and see her every single day. Gripping Kanoa's shoulders, the brown-haired girl speaks with desperation while the pink-haired girl remains stoically silent. Kanoa looks down thoughtfully, acknowledging to herself that Monet is a truly precious friend to her. Looking at the moon, Kanoa promises Monet that she will return to see her again very soon. A title card displays the series name and indicates that this is Episode 9, The Contract Conditions. A sudden, sharp ping sounds as the elevator reaches the floor and Kanoa steps out alone. Walking with purpose, the pink-haired girl moves through the building while dressed in her maid uniform. Kanoa recalls the plan to lure the organization's people away before preparing to face them directly. Kenny explains that enemies will likely attack when she is alone, making her the perfect bait. Kenny instructs Kanoa to kill the enemies with overwhelming strength to keep the organization at bay. Standing on the balcony, Kenny warns that her death would end both their household and their contract. A final reminder states that if she fails, the Kiryu household and their contract will both end. The pink-haired maid stands alone, facing the massive, glowing skyscrapers of the city during the night. A sudden, quick scuff sounds as Kanoa walks through a dark alleyway toward her target area. A close-up of Kanoa's eye reflects her determination as she enters the secluded location for the mission. Moving forward with a steady gait, Kanoa vows to herself that she will definitely succeed this time. The scene shifts to an expansive view of the city skyline under a dark and cloudy sky. Kanoa notes the absence of others in the area, deciding that this is the ideal spot to fight. Kenny previously cautioned her against fighting in crowded places to avoid any complications with the local police. Several armed men suddenly emerge from the shadows, surrounding the pink-haired maid with swords and guns. Surrounded by attackers, Kanoa reflects on the conflicting commands she received from Kenny and her friend Monet. A sudden, loud shout sounds as the men charge forward with their blades raised toward the girl. Kanoa acrobatically flips through the air, evading the simultaneous attacks from the group of men below her. A sudden, sharp thud sounds as the pink-haired girl lands gracefully, leaving her sweating opponents in shock. Kanoa delivers a devastating strike to her opponent, sending a massive shockwave through the air. A sudden, sharp bang sounds as the man in glasses fires his handgun at Kanoa. Moving with incredible speed, the pink-haired maid easily dodges the bullet mid-flight. A sudden, loud thud sounds as Kanoa's powerful kick slams into the armed man. Kanoa notes her opponent's lack of strength, deciding that these men are not actual assassins. Surrounded by several more attackers, the pink-haired maid prepares to continue her counteroffensive. A sudden, sharp crack sounds as Kanoa strikes another man, sending blood flying. Delivering a final bone-crushing kick, the pink-haired maid launches her opponent across the street. Kanoa stands silently over her defeated foes, her expression cold and detached. From above, the alleyway is filled with the bodies of the defeated men in black. A sudden, soft groan sounds as the man in glasses struggles to move while groaning. Kanoa's attention is taken by a sudden, quick whoosh sounding from the rooftops above her. A blue-haired man suddenly leaps down from the building while drawing a sharp silver blade. A sudden, loud squelch sounds as the newcomer stabs the fallen man in the back. The blue-haired man stands over the corpse with a sinister grin while holding a lollipop. Kanoa's eyes widened in recognition, her expression turning into one of pure, silent shock. Standing triumphantly over the corpse, the blue-haired man is identified as Enril by the maid. Enril smiles warmly while noting how much he has missed seeing her lately. He calls the pink-haired maid by her former codename, Tear-chan, while laughing with joy. Kanoa identifies him, while Enril notes she hasn't even broken a sweat in this fight. Enril praises her skills as an elite assassin, still referring to her as Tear-chan. In a flashback, a younger Enril calls out for Kanoa to wait for him. A sudden, heavy huff sounds as the young boy struggles to keep up with her. Young Enril desperately chases after young Kanoa while she walks through a sunlit park. Gripping her in a hug, the boy reminds her of their promise to stay together. Young Kanoa coldly denies making any promise, stating she cannot take him with her today.
The boy asks if he can join her once he becomes as strong as she is. Looking back at him, young Kanoa agrees to take him if he manages to get stronger.
A sudden, loud shout sounds as a violent scene unfolds near a large building. Young Kanoa and Enril engage in a fierce training session as the sun begins to set. After a moment of success, the young blue-haired boy celebrates with a joyful and energetic shout. A sudden, soft drip sounds as a water bottle sits abandoned against a brick wall. Young Enril acknowledges his defeat once again, but remains determined to eventually surpass her. The two children sit together in the quiet darkness of the night. Enril expresses his desire to stay with her, while Kanoa promises to protect his life. The blue-haired boy vows to survive no matter what so they can always stay together. Back in the present, Enril reveals his obsession while Kanoa questions his reason for pursuing her. Kanoa stares at the blue-haired man in silence, processing the weight of their shared past. Enril playfully claims he just wanted to see her before dismissing the question as a joke. He declares that if she is to be killed, he wants to be the one doing it. A sudden, loud roar sounds as Enril's eyes glow red with intense murderous intent. Moving with blinding speed, Enril charges toward Kanoa with his claws ready to strike. Kanoa is caught off guard by his sudden burst of speed as he begins his assault. Clashing against the wall, Enril asks why she is only dodging his attacks instead of fighting. He demands to know if she still considers him to be nothing more than a child. Enril questions if she believes his current strength is still not enough to face her. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Kanoa realizes just how fast he has become. Enril lunges forward with a lethal strike that Kanoa is unable to fully evade. A sudden, sharp sounds as Kanoa is struck by a lethal blow that draws blood. Kanoa slumps over in agony as Enril stands over her with a cold, triumphant gaze. A sudden, sharp squelch sounds as Kanoa's side is pierced, leaving a trail of blood. Enril stands over the wounded maid in silence while she kneels on the ground, trembling. Kanoa clutches her bleeding wound, shouting that she simply does not wish to fight him. Enril asks why the former assassin has become so emotional, noting she once killed without hesitation. Kanoa explains that she no longer wants to kill mindlessly because Monet taught her human warmth. Mockingly, Enril questions if human warmth is enough to help the pink-haired maid survive this encounter. She recalls memories of a warm room and food, things she never knew before meeting Maureen. Kanoa reflects on the warmth of human smiles and what it truly means to be human. Looking back at her opponent, she declares that she is only surviving now because of Monet. A dark energy swirls as the blue-haired man tells her that she has become boring. Enril rages that she has chosen someone else even though she was always with him before. Kanoa tells him that if he met Monet, he would understand why she has changed. A sudden, quiet huff sounds as Enril looks away, processing the pink-haired girl's defiant words. Smiling sinisterly, Enril vows to bring the maid back to her former state as an assassin. With eyes glowing red, Enril declares his intention to kill the child named Monet very soon. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Kanoa reacts with total horror to his murderous threat. Enril laughs with predatory joy while confirming that the child named Monet is his next target. Kanoa is struck with terror. The air grows heavy as Enril repeats his vow to kill the girl named Monet tonight. Standing up despite her injury, Kanoa draws her sword and vows she will not let him. Enril chuckles softly while reminding her of the warning he gave her earlier in their fight. Reflecting on her past, Kanoa thinks about how weak humans are, unable to survive the world. A sudden soft click sounds as Kanoa realizes that Monet is actually not weak at all. Her eyes glow with a red intensity as she vows to protect Monet at all costs. Shouting her intention to protect her friend, Kanoa lunges forward with her katana held high. Moving with incredible speed, Kanoa charges toward Enril as he prepares to meet her incoming assault. Enril's eyes widen in shock as the pink-haired maid suddenly vanishes from his field of vision. A sudden, loud slash sounds as Kanoa appears behind him and delivers a massive sweeping strike. A sudden, sharp sounds as Enril is struck by the force of her powerful attack.
Enril is caught off guard as he struggles to regain his footing after her blindingly fast strike.
Kanoa notes that Enril is being a bit slow while she prepares her next violent counterattack. A sudden, loud thud sounds as Kanoa delivers another devastating strike that draws a massive amount of blood. Enril screams in pure agony as a deep, bloody wound is carved across his chest. Kanoa stands over her fallen foe, her katana dripping with blood as she stares him down. Pinning him to the ground, the maid warns him never to lay a finger on Monet. Enril chuckles despite his wounds, finding the expression on Kanoa's face to be absolutely fascinating. He wonders aloud what his next move should be while looking up at the city skyline. Enril smiles as he admits that he is starting to find the pink-haired girl rather intriguing. Kanoa watches him with cold, murderous intent as she prepares to end the fight for good. A sudden, sharp swing sounds as Kanoa raises her katana for a final, lethal downward strike. Enril screams in pain as the blade is driven deep into his body once again. A sudden, loud bang sounds as Kanoa kicks the man, sending him sliding across the ground. Enril mocks her for losing her touch, claiming her failure to kill him proves her weakness. Enril smiles with sinister intent, his eyes glowing as he prepares to reveal a final threat. He declares his intention to report everything to Marshal Cid, causing Kanoa to gasp in shock. Enril asks the pink-haired girl if she truly understands the consequences of what he just said. He explains that Marshal Cid will use any means necessary to achieve his dark ultimate goals. A sudden, soft click sounds as Kanoa grips her sword, her face hidden in deep shadow. Moving with a sudden burst of energy, Kanoa charges at Enril with her eyes glowing red. A sudden, sharp sounds as Kanoa delivers a final bloody slash across the man's chest. Kanoa delivers a final decisive strike, bidding a cold farewell to the defeated blue-haired man. A sudden, loud crackle sounds as a massive surge of purple electricity erupts throughout the alleyway. The pink-haired maid stares in wide-eyed disbelief, realizing that her katana has vanished into thin air. A sudden, sharp whoosh sounds as a brown-haired girl in black dashes past the disarmed maid. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Kanoa is knocked back, blood spurting from a fresh side wound. From the shadows, the newcomer notes that being so emotionally compromised is very unlike the maid. Standing with a glowing hand, the brown-haired girl mocks Kanoa for getting worked up over a child. The girl in black helps Enril stand, insisting they head to the healing squad immediately. Enril thanks Seto while Kanoa watches silently as the brown-haired girl decides to end the confrontation. Seto explains she used her ability to destabilize Kanoa's powers, temporarily rendering her weapons unusable. She observes that Kanoa's only remaining defense is a single knife, making her vulnerable to attack. Deciding to prioritize Enril's safety, Seto reveals that Marshal Cid has a message for the maid. Kanoa listens in silence, her expression clouded with confusion as she waits for the girl's words. Seto warns that a man named Kenny has betrayed assassins before and will likely betray her too. The brown-haired girl adds a final chilling warning to protect the life of the human she loves. The scene shifts to the imposing Ares Corporation building, where an empty, high-tech laboratory stands silent. A black-haired man sits alone at a computer console, his back turned to the darkened room. A sudden, soft click sounds as Kanoa holds a knife to the black-haired man's throat. The pink-haired maid demands that the man tell her everything he knows about someone named Kenny. A sudden, sharp zap sounds as an energy bolt strikes nearby while the man refuses to talk. Marshal Cid appears, noting that the man is a high-ranking official who would never reveal classified information. The black-haired man identifies himself as the CTO, explaining his position prevents him from leaking secrets. Kanoa questions the meaning of his title, clearly unfamiliar with the corporate hierarchy he describes. Pressing her blade closer, the maid coldly dismisses his status as something that doesn't concern her. Kanoa threatens to permanently silence the man if he continues to refuse her demand for information. A sudden, sharp click sounds as the hammer of a handgun is pulled back behind her. Marshal Cid points his weapon at the maid, asking her what exactly she thinks she is doing. He warns her that the organization frequently spreads false information to manipulate people like her. Kanoa recalls Cid's earlier words about betrayal, pointing out the inconsistency in his claims. A sudden soft huff sounds as the gray-haired man scoffs at her attempt to use logic. Sid questions why she chose to believe him without any evidence, noting her lack of proof. He maintains his aim while admitting that he doesn't have any definitive proof of his own either. Marshal Sid lowers his gun slightly, cryptically mentioning that he is currently engaged in a larger plan. A memory of Monet cooking dinner flashes by while Sid reminds Kanoa he is protecting her friends.
The pink-haired maid remains silent, sweat dripping down her face as she processes the man's manipulation.
Sid tells the maid not to waste the CTO's time with such trivial questions ever again. He walks away while Togashi returns to his work, leaving Kanoa alone in the blue-lit room. Sid asks the black-haired man how much longer the current project will take to finish. Togashi responds that everything will be ready for the final phase in approximately 2 days. Walking toward the door, Sid tells the confused maid that everything is proceeding as planned. Surrounded by an aura of dark energy, Sid mentions they are preparing for a public execution. Kanoa's eyes widen as she wonders if a public execution simply means killing someone in the open.
The gray-haired man notes that her reactions are as non-existent and cold as they always were.
Sid explains they won't be killing anyone this time but rather confronting their enemies without violence. He confidently declares that Eris will be making its move very soon to secure their objectives. Looking down at the alley, Sid observes that Kanoa's actions have bought the organization more time. He informs the pink-haired maid that she is officially off duty until the final preparations are complete. Kanoa repeats the phrase in a daze, seemingly unsure of what to do with her sudden freedom. A sudden soft creak sounds as Kanoa opens the front door to her shared home. Moni and her friend smile warmly while greeting the returning maid with a cheerful welcome home. Kanoa looks downward with a somber expression as she stands alone in the quiet room. Recalling Enril's threats, Kanoa listens as Moni offers to prepare some food for her soon. Monet turns away from the pink-haired maid to head toward the kitchen to start cooking dinner. Looking back with a warm smile, the brown-haired girl radiates a comforting sense of kindness. Kanoa watches Monet leave, her pink hair framing a face still marked by past hardships. A sudden, soft gasp sounds as Monet looks up with surprise while standing near a blooming flower. Moving with unexpected affection, Kanoa pulls Monet into a gentle hug from behind her back.
Resting her head on Moni's shoulder, Kanoa softly whispers that she has finally returned home.
Monet looks down at the maid's hands with a peaceful smile while accepting the sudden hug. Sitting nearby, the brown-haired friend watches the two girls with a silent and supportive expression. Still embracing her friend, Kanoa mentions that there is a question she needs to ask her. Monet tilts her head back to look at the pink-haired maid while asking her what it is. A sudden, light clink sounds as a cup of dark tea sits atop a white saucer. High-rise buildings pierce the bright blue sky as the scene shifts to the city streets. Walking together, Monet expresses her surprise that someone named Kenny gave Kanoa time off. A memory of Sid appears as Kanoa struggles to understand why anyone would call him kind. Monet smiles brightly while telling the pink-haired girl that they should have fun today. Agreeing with the suggestion, Kanoa follows the brown-haired girl as they explore the urban landscape. The pair walks away from the camera, heading toward a large and modern shopping district. Monet spots a store named Cute Mascot and excitedly calls out to see the cute items. Inside the shop, the brown-haired girl cheers over the release of a brand new product. 3 adorable animal keychains hang on display, including a bear, a unicorn, and a rabbit. A close-up reveals a round, bean-like bear keychain with a green tag reading Run Run. Kanoa stares at the toys with a confused expression, clearly out of her usual element. Holding one up, Monet asks the pink-haired girl if any of the keychains caught her eye. Kanoa holds up the bear charm while noting that she finds the Shul one appealing. The pink-haired maid has already clipped the small bear keychain onto her dark clothing's belt. They continue walking through the city, passing under a billboard that mentions a new start. Monet suggests going to the park for sweets, but Kanoa is completely unfamiliar with the term. Gesturing with her hands, Monine explains that a croffle is a delicious, soft, and crisp treat. Kanoa wonders with a serious face if this croffle could possibly taste better than miso soup. Moan laughs slightly while explaining that the two foods are actually very different from one another. At the pier, Kanoa reflects on the orange sea as the sun begins its final descent. The brilliant, fiery light of the setting sun is reflected perfectly in Kanoa's intense red eye. Monet agrees with the maid's quiet observation while they stand before the vast, glowing ocean. Turning to her friend, Moni asks the pink-haired girl if anything happened during her time away. Kanoa looks to the side with a pained expression while the sunset illuminates her face. Monet notes that it was the first time Kanoa ever initiated a hug by herself. Kanoa looks down sadly while preparing to explain her sudden change in behavior to Monet. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Kanoa's name is called out by a familiar, unwanted voice. Enril appears nearby, remarking that modern medicine is truly amazing for healing his many wounds. The blue-haired man greets Moni by name and declares that he was dying to meet her. Stepping closer, Enril explains that his interest in her is exactly why he came here. Kanoa's expression turns murderous as she glares at the blue-haired intruder with glowing red eyes. Manal looks back and forth between them while asking if the man is an acquaintance. A sudden sharp swoosh sounds as Kanoa throws her arm out to block Monet's path protectively. With a sinister smirk, Enril introduces himself to the brown-haired girl as a friend of Kanoa's. A sudden heavy thud sounds as Kanoa grabs Monet's hand and begins sprinting away from him. Enril stands alone on the pier, looking shocked and frustrated by the maid's sudden retreat. Monet smiles warmly while expressing her happiness that Kanoa finally has a friend of her own. Against a floral backdrop, Monet suggests that there is one final thing she must say. Monet asks the blue-haired man if he is Kanoa's assassin friend who wants her back. Kanoa looks down while explaining that Enril is actually an assassin she nearly killed before. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Monet reacts with shock to Kanoa's past violent encounter. Scratching his head, Enril sheepishly admits that describing their history that way makes him sad. Enril gazes at the brown-haired girl, noting that she has taken a very important friend. Enril declares he will take Kanoa back before suddenly sprinting away into the orange sunset. Enril looks shocked while Kanoa glares with glowing red eyes, demanding to know his plan. The blue-haired man looks back over his shoulder with a confident and knowing smirk. Enril reminds the pink-haired maid that he never knows when to stop as she watches. Monet smiles brightly while suggesting that having many friends is a wonderful thing for anyone. Kanoa and Enril both look at the cheerful girl with expressions of absolute confusion. Someone reflects that they aren't Kanoa's only friend, noting the presence of another important person. Reaching out, Monet kindly tells the blue-haired man that he is likely a friend too. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Enril looks completely stunned, sweat rolling down his face. Standing on the pier, Monet points out the contradiction in capturing someone so important to him. Enril defines friends as those who support you and stay by your side through difficult times. Monet suddenly suggests that she and Enril should go eat some delicious croffles together now. A sudden, soft click sounds as Monet grabs Enril's hand and drags him away quickly. Monet leads the group, declaring that sharing delicious food is exactly what true friends do. Enril protests that his wounds aren't healed yet, while Kanoa follows them with silent interest. Monet jokes that his excitement proves he is healthy, while Kanoa observes her friend's kindness. Watching Monet's cheerful behavior, a gentle and rare smile finally crosses the pink-haired maid's face. Sitting on a bench, the three eat together while Enril wonders how the situation changed. A sudden, quick chomp sounds as Kanoa bites into her dessert with a serious expression. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Kanoa delightedly declares that the treat is absolutely delicious. Monet agrees the treat is crispy and good, while Enril notices Kanoa eating with gusto. Kanoa looks downward with a somber expression as she realizes her dessert is already finished. The pink-haired maid stares intently at Enril's food, drawing a questioning look from him. Kanoa warns Enril she will take his treat if he doesn't eat it, surprising him. A sudden quick chomp sounds as Enril quickly takes a bite of his own friend. Enril looks delighted with wide eyes, declaring that the dessert is actually very good too. The blue-haired man laughs heartily while Kanoa watches him with a silent and confused expression. Monet laughs alongside them, noting that Enril's reaction is just like the pink-haired girl's. Enril looks up in surprise as Monine leans in very close toward his face suddenly. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Kanoa grabs Monet's wrist while she wipes chocolate from Enril. Enril's expression turns cold as he declares that he is not interested in such hypocrisy. Kanoa holds a knife to Enril's throat, threatening to kill him if he does anything more. Monet looks between them in confusion, wondering why they're fighting while eating sweets together. A close-up reveals Kanoa's gloved hand firmly gripping Monet's wrist to pull her away. Enril gazes at Monet, pondering the meaning of hypocrisy as the sunset colors his hair. Monet maintains her gentle expression while telling Enril that he is still Kanoa's friend. A thought bubble reveals Mon's sincere belief that the blue-haired man is her friend too. Monet smiles warmly at the stunned man, who realizes she truly considers him a friend. A sudden, soft snap sounds as Enril's hand finally falls away from the dessert. Enril stands and begins to walk away, his head lowered as he processes her words. The trio remains on the pier as Enril departs, leaving Kanoa and Monet together. Kanoa explains to Enril that Monet's kindness is what allowed her to change her life. Monet sits quietly on the park bench, watching the interaction with a peaceful and calm expression. Enril walks away into the distance, admitting he still doesn't understand anything about their bond. Monet looks skeptical while someone mentions that there is still a lingering doubt. Kanoa expresses a slight interest in the ongoing conversation with a calm, neutral expression. Enril stands silently with his gloved hand near his face, lost in deep thought. Walking away, Enril clarifies that his previous comments were actually about the delicious croffle. Monet smiles brightly while the pink-haired maid looks on with a curious and confused expression. Monet waves goodbye as Enril walks away, his expression remaining somber and distant. Minot waves cheerfully while Kanoa stands nearby with her head lowered in the sunset. Enril walks further away into the distance as flower petals drift through the orange air. Kenny watches the two girls from a distance while smoking a cigarette near the pier.
A sudden, sharp beep sounds as Kenny reacts to a notification on his black earpiece.
Kenny and Togashi confirm that everything is finished as the sun sets over the ocean.
Kenny sits at his desk, deep in thought, surrounded by several vases of purple flowers.
Togashi and Kanoa enter the office, with the doctor offering a polite greeting as they arrive. A sudden, sharp creak sounds as Kenny looks over his shoulder toward his visitors. Kenny's expression hardens as he demands to know why the little girl is here. Togashi nervously explains that Monet refused to give up on coming to the office today. Togashi notes Kanoa is working for her family while the group gathers in the office. Monet asserts her right to know the truth despite being labeled a mere hostage by Kenny. Kenny dismisses the issue, noting Togashi will be responsible if any secret information is leaked. Kenny stands up and asks Kanoa if she has managed to reconcile with Enril yet. Kanoa asks Kenny if he was watching them while Monet looks on with concern. Kenny admits he gave her time off, but never promised not to monitor her activities. Reviewing footage, Kenny observes that Enril didn't fight with the intent to kill Kanoa. Kenny remarks that Kanoa's escape has shaken the other assassins, and Enril's hesitation proves it. A sudden sharp clatter sounds as Kanoa drops her broken device onto the floor. Kanoa asks about a promised repair, but Kenny tells her that outdated junk is unnecessary. A digital notification reveals that Kanoa will soon be receiving Eris's compact cloud system. Kenny dismisses Togashi while the doctor prepares to hand something over to the pink-haired maid. A floating screen explains that this original CC was developed exclusively by the Eris Corporation. Monet asks if Kanoa can summon weapons from cyberspace, while Togashi confirms the system's capability. Togashi mentions potential side effects while expressing his desire to make the system safer. Kenny's face fills the frame as he asks Togashi why he is chatting so casually. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Togashi apologizes while holding a long, dark object. Togashi explains that Monet began visiting the system room and asking questions after arriving at Ares. Togashi recalls how Monet mastered the monitoring system quickly after he taught her the basics. Togashi points out that Monet used a self-developed algorithm to find the specific security footage. Kenny notes Monet's talent despite being a hostage while introducing the new custom weapon. Kenny explains the CC is voice-locked and only reacts to Kanoa's specific voice print. Standing in the center of the office, Kenny encourages the pink-haired maid to try it. Kanoa considers various codes, including Rindo, while trying to activate her new specialized weapon. Kenny breaks into a cold sweat while noting that Kanoa is actually unbelievably clumsy. A sudden, soft hum sounds as a large purple flower begins to bloom with light. Monet watches in awe as the flower materializes, declaring the sight to be absolutely beautiful. Kanoa holds the new sword, named Rindo, which is designed to recognize her unique biometrics. The system monitors her breath, heartbeat, and voice print to ensure the weapon functions properly. Kenny mentions Kanoa might not understand yet, but should ask Togashi when the time comes. Monet asks if the sword is named after flowers, while Togashi mentions Kenny's wife. Kenny's expression turns terrifying as he asks Togashi if he is looking for a beating. Kanoa grips the hilt of the flower-shaped sword while Kenny continues explaining its significance. Kenny smiles warmly while telling Kanoa that Rindo is a companion and part of her. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the pink-haired girl reacts with shock to the word companion. Kenny mentions that since he and Togashi lack free time, he will explain the plan. Kenny tasks Kanoa with stealing classified documents from a company called Naya Trap. Naya Trap is a company connecting the Prime Minister with an organization behind the scenes. While officially a world-leading trading company, they use political contacts to export technology illegally. Kenny's expression hardens as he mentions the company trades weapons and military equipment. They also commercialize systems produced by black hackers, untested pharmaceuticals, and various dangerous weapons. Kanoa asks if she simply needs to steal proof of their illegal activities. Kenny confirms the objective is to steal data directly from a secret server at headquarters. Chibi Kanoa is confused about stealing a server, so Kenny clarifies it as the data. Togashi expresses concern that Kanoa does not know how to handle servers or copy terminals. Kenny remarks on her troublesome weakness, but notes a delay could be dangerous for someone. Monet suddenly interrupts and declares that she will perform the mission herself. Everyone in the office reacts with absolute shock as they shout the brown-haired girl's name. Kenny reflects on Togashi's strictness while pondering his decision to trust Monet's monitoring talents. Kenny looks at the brown-haired girl and asks why she wants to go. Kenny warns that the chances of success are slim due to assassins in the security division. Kenny suggests the situation changes entirely if the brown-haired girl goes accompanied by Kanoa. Moan beams while claiming that the pink-haired girl can neutralize the enemy security division. A sudden, soft snap sounds as Kanoa insists on going alone to avoid risking her friend. Monet gazes at her friend, trying to find the right words to convince her. Monet explains that she wants to help because her friend has protected her for so long. Surrounded by roses, the brown-haired girl asks if she will be kept safe regardless. The pink-haired maid makes a determined promise to certainly keep her friend safe. Kenny smirks while finding the concept of the pink-haired maid protecting someone quite intriguing. Kenny notes that an assassin's role is to kill, making protection far more difficult. Kenny revises the mission, assigning Kanoa to be a bodyguard to learn about protection. Kenny asks Togashi to prepare outfits and IDs, mentioning someone named Yamato will help. Togashi agrees to handle it, while Kenny plans to resolve the employee ID issue. Chibi Kanoa wonders about Yamato's identity, revealed to be a spy for the Eris Corporation. Yamato is the general director of management at NT and will help with the infiltration. Kenny explains the man will get them into his department as new interns. The pink-haired maid and the brown-haired girl look at each other with silent realization.
Kenny puts out a cigarette while explaining they will be disguised as office ladies.
Chibi Monet is delighted to look like a grown-up, while Kanoa remains skeptical. Someone wonders if Yamato is a squad name, while the girls prepare to infiltrate. A massive, futuristic skyscraper towers into the clear blue sky on the day of the mission.
Employees discuss documents stored in the cloud and a meeting scheduled for that afternoon.
A sudden, quick click sounds as the girls walk through the lobby in office attire. Monet feels excited working in a big company, while the pink-haired girl looks serious. Kanoa complains that her head is itchy, prompting Monet to warn her about the wig. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as a man in a suit approaches the two girls. A purple-haired man with glasses asks the girls what they are doing.
Recognizing the man, the brown-haired girl excitedly asks if he is Yamato.
The man places a finger to his lips, silencing her with a stern and cold expression. He scolds her for using his first name, insisting she calls him Director Kusanagi. Monet looks terrified by his presence, while the pink-haired girl observes with a neutral face. Kusunoki adjusts his glasses while asking if the girl is attempting to ward him. The pink-haired girl with glasses declares she is instructing him as his superior instead. Chibi Monet notes with a sweat drop that the two individuals are actually quite alike. Kusunoki adjusts his glasses as a sudden, rhythmic beeping sound takes his attention. Pluto assumes Yamato has met the girls as the scene shifts to the monitoring room. Kusunoki calmly confirms that he has met the girl who gave him specific instructions. Kusunoki notes that the files are uploaded and prepares to enter the secure lobby. Kusunoki informs the girls that their entry passes are ready and leads the way. Kanoa stares intensely as she reflects on the instructions they must follow to succeed. Kusunoki explains the automatic ID recognition cameras and the strict deadline for their access. Kusunoki maintains a neutral expression as they move through the high-tech corridors of the building. Kusunoki adopts the persona of a strict superior, ordering the girls to follow the schedule. The brown-haired girl whispers that Yamato seems like someone who holds a serious grudge. A voice calls out to Director Kusunoki, noting his early arrival at the facility. Kusunoki and the girls turn as they are greeted by a high-ranking official. Pluto stands with an air of authority, his presence commanding the attention of everyone nearby. Kusunoki offers a polite greeting as the girls remain quiet beside their supposed supervisor. The man is identified as Pluto, the powerful CEO of the massive Naya Trap Company. Pluto addresses Director Kusunoki with a smug grin, questioning the state of the systems department. Amami Claire, Pluto's secretary, thanks Kusunoki for his help with the technical documents yesterday. Kanoa suspiciously eyes the security head, Kinjo Tsuyoshi, wondering if he is actually an assassin. Kusunoki reports that the budget is approved and operations are running smoothly without any issues. Pluto walks away confidently, his white suit glowing under the bright lights of the lobby. Pluto leans in to praise Kusunoki's capability, noting the significance of the confidential information. Kusunoki humbly insists he is the lucky one while the girls watch the interaction. Claire notices the girls and playfully asks if they are the company's newest interns.
The brown-haired girl stutteringly confirms their role while Kanoa remains stoic and observant.
Kusunoki explains they are daughters of an acquaintance here for a short-term internship program. Pluto agrees to fast-track them to the final interview based solely on Kusunoki's personal recommendation. Kusunoki bows deeply, expressing his gratitude and promise to keep the leader fully informed. Claire winks at the girls, encouraging them to meet the high expectations of their director. Kanoa watches Claire walk away, wondering if the secretary's wink was actually a physical irritant. Kusunoki begins summarizing their infiltration plan, citing his lack of free time for long explanations. Kusunoki details the layout of the building, which consists of 35 total floors and departments.
They pass through the massive facility as Kusunoki explains the locations of the parking and systems.
The brown-haired girl is overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the high-tech monitoring room. Kusunoki corrects the girl's confusion, explaining that the boxes are actually sophisticated security monitors. Kusunoki explains that this specific floor monitors every hallway, elevator, and room in the building. Kanoa points out a row of footage that looks distinct from the rest of the monitors. Kusunoki confirms the footage shows the top floor, where Pluto's exclusive private office is located. Kusunoki identifies the secret server room and the conference room Pluto uses for high-level meetings. A record reveals that a blind spot was discovered in the parking lot's camera coverage. Kusunoki recalls monitoring the blind spot every night until a mysterious minivan finally appeared. Kusunoki reveals that the president was the one secretly using the van to avoid detection. Kanoa questions the server's location, worried that any mistake could compromise Monet's safety. Kusunoki mentions the detection of weak electromagnetic signals that persist throughout the entire building. Kusunoki shows them his device, explaining that signals are blocked specifically near the leader's office. The brown-haired girl questions if the server room door is under constant heavy surveillance. Kusunoki sips tea while explaining Pluto's monitoring habits, causing the girl to panic about entry. Kusunoki reveals the window of opportunity occurs during Pluto's monthly meeting with the president. Kusunoki explains that the security head's presence outside the office proves Pluto isn't monitoring. The brown-haired girl wonders if Claire is suspicious, but Kusunoki notes her constant proximity.
Kusunoki declares Claire is an accomplice as she stands loyally beside the menacing leader Pluto.
Kanoa and Monet look distressed while a sudden, sharp gasp sounds in the technology-filled room. A massive, futuristic skyscraper towers into the clear blue sky as the scene shifts. Inside the CEO's office, Claire promises to send information regarding an upcoming medical assembly. The man with reddish hair asks about the assassin, while Claire confirms the arrangements are progressing.
Claire suggests removing the doctor while the man complains about the scientist's insistence on clinical trials.
The man reveals with a sinister grin that many people died during tests in the slums. Claire smiles pleasantly while remarking that medical progress requires certain sacrifices to be made. Relaxing in his chair, the man tells Claire that he truly appreciates her way of thinking. He mentions having information for tomorrow's meeting before allowing Claire to take her leave early. Claire politely thanks him and says goodbye while preparing to depart from the high-tech office. Walking through a dark hallway, Claire wonders about the man's words while another employee approaches her. The two employees exchange polite greetings regarding their hard work as they pass each other. Claire walks away as she materializes a glowing digital phone from thin air with a thought. On a call, Claire asks if the plan for the assassin can be adjusted slightly. The scene shifts to a sunny rooftop cafe where employees are relaxing and eating lunch. Patrons enjoy burgers and coffee while the city skyline stretches out in the background. A plate of seafood pasta and a pizza look delicious under the bright afternoon sun. Monet is excited to eat while the pink-haired girl asks about the flat object on her plate. Monet describes the flavor as cheesy and crispy while her friend stares intensely at the meal. Kanoa suddenly rolls the entire pizza into a cylinder and eats it like a sushi mall. Back at headquarters, Director Kusunoki works at his station while the two girls manage their terminals. Monet reports a system error while the director confirms they have a backup for restoration. Kanoa's head begins to throb as lines of complex computer code fill her vision. A sudden, soft thud sounds as the pink-haired girl collapses face down onto her desk. Moni rushes over to check on her friend while whispering a quiet warning about their surroundings. Kusunoki scolds the girl for sleeping and summons her to his desk to discuss the mission. He presents a specialized terminal device that will be used to infiltrate the company's server. The director explains the A-clone system will copy confidential files by mimicking a high-level account. He clarifies that the terminal accesses internal AI processing from the outside for easier data retrieval. A sudden, sharp beep sounds as the director demonstrates the 10-minute file copying process. Kusunoki notes a significant problem while the two girls look at him with confusion. He explains that linking the systems requires entering 426 unique codes during the synchronization phase. The director questions if she can complete the task within the required 2-minute window. Monet proudly reveals she finished a test with Togashi in only 1 minute and 38 seconds. Kusunoki reacts with shock as Monet confirms she entered every single code on her first attempt. Adjusting his glasses, the director wonders where Togashi could have found someone with such talent. Monet asks the director if he is truly prepared to risk his career with this time. Kanoa asks for clarification while Monet looks on with a slightly worried and uncertain expression. The pink-haired girl explains Monin is asking why he is helping Eris Corporation against his company. Monet panics about her friend being too blunt while the director looks down in deep thought. The brown-haired girl notes he has a top position and could live a life without hardships. Kusunoki explains that he and Eris share the same deep-seated fears about the future. He reveals a fear that Tokyo might eventually become nothing more than a North American colony. Kanoa stares blankly while pondering the meaning of the director's warning about the country's fate. A sudden, sharp beep sounds as the director reacts to a notification on his black earpiece. Kenny eats a large steak while instructing the girls to return home for tomorrow's mission. Kusunoki tells the girls they are finished while Monet warns her friend not to remove her wig. A sudden, soft chime sounds as a smartphone screen lights up with a new notification. The director checks his phone and sees a movement detection alert from the previous day. Kusunoki wonders if the notification is simply a bug while the two girls watch him closely. The purple-haired man with glasses looks shocked, wondering about the unexpected turn of events. A sudden, sharp click sounds as Director Kusunoki notices an unprecedented glitch in the garage. Kenny receives word that the president has arrived, making the already tense situation even more critical. Leaning against a black SUV, the man in the double-breasted suit awaits the upcoming secret meeting. Kusunoki reports that the head of security is currently stationed outside the leader's private office. Kenny realizes that a high-level secret meeting is about to take place within the corporate headquarters. Despite Kusunoki's request to postpone, Kenny insists on proceeding to avoid alerting the Eris Corporation. Kenny emphasizes the urgency of executing the plan before security measures are significantly tightened further. The brown-haired girl with glasses takes charge, declaring she will carry out the mission herself. Kanoa leads Monet away while director Kusunoki protests their reckless decision to act without orders. Determined to succeed, the brown-haired girl with glasses refuses to follow any further cautious instructions. A sudden heavy thud sounds as the heavy doors of the restricted sector finally slide shut. A security guard in a suit blocks their path, stating that entry is strictly forbidden here. Kanoa calmly explains that she has already replaced the security footage with a harmless dummy loop. Ignoring her explanation, the guard sternly commands the two girls to leave the area immediately. A sudden, quick snap sounds as Kanoa delivers a precise strike to the guard's vulnerable throat. Despite the lethal blow, the guard barely reacts, shocking Kanoa and her companion with his resilience. The guard stands tall while the girls realize their initial attack failed to incapacitate the enemy. Tension rises as the guard's expression remains cold and unaffected by the physical assault. The guard's unsettling composure continues to heighten the sense of dread during their fierce confrontation. With terrifying strength, the guard grabs Kanoa by the throat and lifts her off the floor. A sudden, soft creak sounds as the guard's hand tightens its suffocating grip on Kanoa's neck. Kanoa struggles to breathe while the guard's overwhelming power threatens to end her mission early. The guard's eyes widen in surprise as he feels a sudden, frantic impact against his side. A sudden, quick pop sounds as Chibi-mon desperately pummels the guard to save her friends. A sudden, heavy thwack sounds as the guard ruthlessly backhands Monet away from the ongoing struggle. Monet cries out in pain as she is sent tumbling across the cold, hard hallway floor. A sudden, sharp chime sounds as Kanoa's eyes narrow with an intense, newfound tactical resolve. Blood splatters as Kanoa uses a hidden weapon to strike the guard's neck with lethal precision. Realizing that conventional physical damage is ineffective, Kanoa decides to switch to a more drastic method. Using his own tie as a garrote, Kanoa begins to systematically strangle the resilient security guard. Kanoa exerts every ounce of her strength to keep the guard pinned despite her physical limitations. A sudden, heavy crash sounds as the massive guard finally collapses onto the floor, defeated. Monet watches in horrified silence while Kanoa stands over the body of their fallen adversary. Kenny watches the monitor with a smirk, noting that she finished the opponent off very quickly. Director Kusunoki provides the access codes and commands the girls to enter the secret server room. Kanoa explains that she didn't kill the man, but merely dislocated his neck to incapacitate him. She estimates he has 6 hours of breath left, prompting a worried reaction from her friend. Kenny reflects on Kanoa's efficiency while she notes the guard's eyes lacked a typical assassin's mark. A sudden soft click sounds as Kanoa's attention is drawn to an unusual noise nearby. The girls are stunned to find the room empty, while their superiors react with absolute disbelief. Kenny's expression hardens into one of pure rage as he realizes the mission has been compromised. A sudden shaky whimper sounds as Monet calls out to Kanoa in the oppressive darkness. Chibi Monet trembles with fear as she realizes that they are trapped in a dangerous situation. The two girls look down the dark hallway, sensing a malevolent presence closing in on them. A sudden low hum sounds as a door begins to glow with an ominous red light. A sudden sharp buzz sounds as a glitchy interference disrupts the feed and Kenny's communications. Director Kusunoki clutches his head in agony as the server's countermeasures begin to affect him. Kenny demands answers while Kusunoki realizes they have been lured into a trap disguised as an elevator. A sudden, heavy slide sounds as the doors open to reveal a room filled with red smoke. Kanoa and Monet reach the massive server room as the heavy elevator doors slide open. Monet gasps in shock, realizing they successfully found the server holding the organization's confidential data. Kanoa notes there are over 100 servers, but their terminal can only copy from 3. Monet urges Kanoa to pick 3 servers quickly so they can escape the high-tech room. Kanoa's intuition warns her that they were intentionally guided to this specific red-lit server location. The oppressive atmosphere of the server room causes Kanoa to question if this is a setup. A masked assassin suddenly lunges at Kanoa with a sword, moving with a sudden whistling whoosh. Kanoa narrowly avoids the lethal strike as the blade hits the floor with a sudden sharp clank. Purple petals swirl around the assassin as she lands gracefully, preparing her next swift and deadly attack. Kanoa demands to know if the masked woman is the one responsible for guiding them here. Kanoa tells Monet to focus on copying the data while she personally handles the dangerous threat. Monet acknowledges the plan, shouting for Kanoa to be careful as a sudden, sharp whistling sound echoes. The assassin's red eyes glow beneath her dark mask, radiating a chilling and unwavering battle spirit. Kanoa realizes she is facing a professional assassin, her alarm growing as she senses her power. The masked woman mocks their slow arrival while questioning the presence of someone she calls Tearchun. The assassin stands ready in the red-lit room, her rapier held high in a disciplined combat stance. Monet works frantically at the server while the assassin watches her with a cold, silent gaze. The masked woman looms over the scene, her presence filling the room with a sense of dread. A close-up reveals the assassin's glowing red eyes as she prepares to unleash her next strike. Kanoa is struck with fear as she realizes the assassin's identity is more dangerous than she imagined.
Kanoa asks if she is an organization assassin, but the woman remains vague and dismissive.
Moni watches the confrontation with wide eyes, paralyzed by the sudden appearance of the masked foe.
Moni wonders why the woman is carrying a portable terminal capable of copying massive amounts of data.
Kanoa suddenly clutches her head in pain, letting out a sudden, sharp, and agonized cry.
Kanoa explains that an unbearable itching in her head has finally pushed her beyond her limit.
Kanoa falls to the ground as red energy surges with a sudden, sharp, and crackling sizzle. Kanoa's eyes glow red as she prepares to fight seriously, charging at her opponent with resolve.
Rindu moves with incredible speed, her swift maneuvers leaving Kanoa shocked by her agility and precision.
Rindu swings her sword in a lethal blur, forcing Kanoa into a desperate and defensive retreat.
Kanoa is barely able to keep up with Rindu's speed, dodging the blades with narrow margins. Kanoa manages to gain some distance, though she is visibly shaken by the assassin's overwhelming skill. Kanoa acknowledges that Rindu is an exceptionally skilled fighter as the intense battle continues to escalate.
A digital interface God Bless Artemis appears as Rindu's sword begins to glow with strange energy.
Glowing red pixels swirl around Rindu's hands as she prepares to activate a powerful code ability.
Rindu moves in a blur, reappearing behind Kanoa with a sudden, quiet, and high-speed whoosh.
Rindu points a gun at Kanoa's head, mockingly asking if she intended to win barehanded.
Kanoa is shocked as the sword transforms into a gun using the Secret Garden AC-04 code. The name Rindu flashes across the scene as petals swirl around the assassin's lethal new weapon. Kanoa ducks low to avoid a blast, purple flowers blooming around her with a sudden, soft rustle.
Rindu performs an acrobatic flip while firing her gun, demonstrating her mastery of diverse combat styles.
Bullets spark against the metal servers as Kanoa dodges with a sudden, sharp, and metallic ping.
Rindu acknowledges Kanoa's impressive talent while the two fighters lock eyes in the heat of combat. Kanoa realizes Rindu could have easily killed her by targeting her head or other vital points.
Kanoa is confused as to why the assassin is instead deliberately aiming for her leg and back. Moni shouts that the data copy is finished as Rindu readies her weapon for another shot.
Kanoa desperately yells for Minot to get down as the assassin prepares a massive energy blast. Rindu fires a barrage into the ceiling, creating a diversion with a sudden, loud, and echoing boom. Rindu orders them to escape, warning that the elevator locks will be triggered in 10 seconds. Kanoa is baffled by the assassin's mercy, questioning Rindu's motive for letting them go free.
Monet urges Kanoa to run immediately, grabbing her hand before the elevator doors seal them inside. Escaping the red room, Kanoa leads a worried Monet away from the glitching digital interference.
Running through the hallways, Kanoa wonders why their enemy allowed them to copy server data.
Still fleeing, the pink-haired girl wonders if Claire was acting under orders from Marshal Sig. Standing in the glowing red doorway, the blonde woman enigmatically wonders who truly knows the answer.
The mysterious blonde woman reflects on her previous opponent being quite a problematic young girl. Declaring the mission over, Claire instructs her team to redo the escape route via the terminal.
A sudden, loud sound as a digital seal glows intensely red behind the standing blonde woman.
At Eris Corporation, Yamato reveals he could only copy data from 3 of 100 servers. Monet apologizes for the limited data, while Director Kusunoki remains silent in the background. The director questions why the organization allowed them to copy information and escape after sending assassins.
A sudden, sharp sound as Director Kusunoki taps his screen, wondering about the enemy's ultimate plan.
Displayed on a monitor, Yamato notes the files are far more numerous than they had expected. Yamato reports that there is no information linking the president to the mysterious NT organization. A sudden, soft sound as a notification appears while Yamato discusses extracting non-public corporate information. Kusunoki reveals he found documents regarding a new business and awaits further details from his team. Togashi explains he is currently analyzing specification documents and expects to finish by the next day. The blue-haired Togashi asks Yamato why he decided to speak for him before he could respond. Looking over the office, Yamato defends himself while Togashi warns him about reigniting a school rumor.
Kusunoki demands they stop their banter and save such personal discussions for their class reunion.
Lighting a cigarette, the director reflects on their college days when they both graduated as top students. Moan assumes they are best friends, but both men instantly and loudly deny her simple observation. Considering the data unreliable, Kusunoki commands them to extract more information by the following day. A sudden, quick sound as the director glares, his eyes narrowed with a sharp, suspicious intensity. Kusunoki assigns the young girl in yellow to Togashi's support team to assist with data analysis. The brown-haired girl is overjoyed to be given an official role within the technical team. Yamato plans to set up dummy logs for the interns while Kusunoki orders him to spy.
A sudden, soft sound as a white cat meows while Kanoa asks for her next task.
Director Kusunoki stares at the pink-haired girl in the maid outfit with a completely deadpan expression. Turning away from his desk, the director simply tells her to go play with the cat.
A sudden sharp sound as Pluto slams his hand, cursing after losing information from the president.
Claire watches Pluto slumped over in frustration while the blue digital room hums with static energy.
She warns that asking Kusunoki to investigate might lead to him discovering the existence of classified servers.
Claire reports that Kinjo is stable, but Pluto identifies Tyr as the woman responsible for the incident.
Pluto names the escapee as Tyr, while Claire notes that the enemy has finally started moving.
Claire reflects on everything going as planned while wondering how Pluto will respond to the situation. Knowing which files were stolen, Claire asks if they are moving forward with the business plan. Pluto believes the stolen data is encrypted, but Claire warns that Kenny will act if they succeed.
A sudden, soft sound as Pluto touches his terminal, enraged at the audacity of the mafia. Glaring with intense resolve, the brown-haired man asks about finally putting their secret plan into action. A sudden, sharp sound as Pluto begins typing rapidly on his pink-lit digital keyboard terminal. A sudden, loud sound as Pluto smiles victoriously, declaring that he has finally found the solution. Pluto dismisses Claire's previous concerns, telling her that her question about the plan was entirely meaningless. A sudden, sharp sound as Pluto initiates a call while declaring NT will secure the resources. A sudden, soft sound as Pluto waits for the high-level digital connection to be established.
Pluto apologizes for the trouble while the president, an older man drinking coffee, asks for updates.
He reports that while some plans were stolen, the other confidential files remain completely secure. The blonde president nods while listening to the report, his expression calm and analytical. The president asks how to handle Kenny, and Pluto assures him he will manage the situation. Pluto asks if he should dispatch 3 assassins with massive energy to deal with their enemies. Claire confirms she can do it but needs an explanation for Sid, whom Pluto says already knows. The blonde president listens while drinking coffee as the report continues to unfold. A sudden sharp sound as the president hears about the implementation of a plan. Pluto smiles over a digital document detailing the specifics of the upcoming annihilation mission. Looking out the window, Kenny dismisses his opponent as a pretentious boss.
Kenny vows to target and destroy whatever his enemy values most at this moment.
Kanoa quietly plays with a small white cat on the floor mirror. A view of the Ares Corporation building appears while Kenny sits reading a newspaper. Kenny asks the pink-haired girl why she is eating chocolate ice cream beside him.
Kanoa explains she is on standby beside him since she currently has no tasks.
Kenny observes that she only came to eat while she continues her silent snack. A sudden, quick sound as Togashi and Monet rush onto the terrace with Maze.
Togashi catches his breath while reporting that they found information regarding Area 66's diagram.
Kenny's expression hardens as he reads about the specification document for a deadly gas. Monet explains how the government administers and numbers different sectors within the urban slums. Kenny scolds Kanoa for ignoring the answer after she was the one who asked.
Togashi reports they decrypted and analyzed the files, finding the area and gas documents linked.
A sudden soft sound as Maureen realizes there was something else in the plans folder.
The young girl reports finding a Project Annihilation folder, but it was found completely empty.
Kenny and Kanoa repeat the project's name with confusion while questioning its true purpose. Over a top-down view of the table, Kenny realizes something is hidden in the slums. Kenny commands the pink-haired girl to investigate Area 66 and report back her findings. Monet offers to assist, but Kenny orders her to support Togashi instead for analysis. Kenny reflects on Pluto's awareness and the mystery behind the organization's willingness to lose data.
Dark smoke hangs over the city while a warning about life and death appears.
A gamble is mentioned while red blood splatters across the floor of an empty balcony. A sudden, soft sound as a robotic dog drone asks to join the mission.
Mon explains that the high-end dog drone is actually a marvel of modern technology.
Kanoa remains skeptical as she stares blankly at the small mechanical animal before her. The dog drone reports that suspicious individuals have been spotted in the neighborhood nearby. Looking over the area, Moni reflects on meeting Kanoa in the slums long ago. A sudden, sharp sound as Kanoa's attention is pulled away while looking at purple flowers. A sudden, quick sound as the dog drone chases someone down a dark alleyway. A sudden, quick sound as Kanoa pursues the intruder through the narrow city streets. A blue-haired boy is cornered as Kanoa wonders what he is doing in this sector. A sudden, loud sound as the dog drone greets the boy while calling him Enril-kun. A sudden, sharp sound as Kanoa grabs Enril's shirt, demanding to know his secret mission. Enril claims he is on break and just came to the area for a walk. Kanoa remains suspicious, questioning why he decided to walk specifically in front of Moni's house.
Enril hesitates as he looks away, unable to provide a convincing excuse for his presence.
A sudden, quick sound as Kanoa teases him about meeting her friend the Bog. A sudden, loud sound as Enril frantically denies the claim, insisting he wanted to avoid them. Kanoa reflects on his desire to meet her friend while he prepares to leave. A sudden, loud sound as streaks of energy or smoke descend upon the alleyway. Kanoa senses a threat approaching and quickly turns to face the source of the noise. A man collapses and gasps in pain as deadly gas begins to fill the area. Someone watches the pair through a torn opening, noting that the target has finally arrived. Text declares that the mastermind behind the terrorist attack has finally reached the scene.
3 smiling assassins look down from a high ledge, ready to engage their enemies. A digital screen monitors the rooftop where the 3 opponents are currently standing. A sudden, heavy sound as the assassins jump down, beginning their confrontation with Kanoa. Kanoa watches as 3 elite assassins under 20 years old arrive to confront her. The 3 enemies reveal themselves as Anubis, Seto, and Loki while they look on menacingly. Enril comments on the presence of the most dangerous members among the youth rank. A sudden, sharp sound as Anubis pounces onto a man, knocking him to the ground. The victim lies motionless on the floor as a pool of blood spreads beneath him. Anubis laughs at the success of their lethal experiment, while Kanoa questions the situation's true nature. Seto reveals that deadly gas bombs have been planted across the area for human experimentation. A sudden soft sound as a drone hovers above while Tagashi receives word of the danger. Kusunoki refuses to involve the police, realizing that such a move is exactly what the enemy wants. Tagashi and his colleague are stunned by the director's claim about the attackers' true motives. Enril questions if their former associates have officially devolved into terrorists during the confrontation. Seto dismisses the boy's query while keeping her focus on the task at hand. Pointing her finger, Seto identifies Kanoa as the real terrorist due to her mafia connections. In the control room, Kusunoki explains the trap being set for them by the opposing organization. Seto prepares her blade, noting that Kanoa's death is required to expose the corporation's secrets. The ponytailed-haired girl vows that Kanoa will perish in a way that suggests a self-inflicted explosion. The woman in the control room desperately shouts for the pink-haired girl to escape. Enril warns Kanoa that the odds are heavily stacked against them in this encounter. Loki watches the interaction with a calm, analytical gaze while the tension begins to mount. The blonde assassin asks Enril to clarify his allegiance to either of the competing corporate groups. Loki looks up at the sky, wondering aloud which side he truly belongs to. With a playful smile, Enril suggests that he might actually be a neutral party. Enraged by his attitude, Anubis lunges forward, declaring that all obstacles must be eliminated. Anubis threatens to kill Enril even as a fellow assassin while he considers fighting back. Enril wonders about the consequences of killing the attackers instead of running away. Anubis breaks into hysterical laughter at the idea of being defeated by the blue-haired boy. The white-haired girl claims their superior rank makes any attempt at a counterattack completely futile. Enril remains undeterred, suggesting there is still a chance for him to emerge victorious. Seto reacts with surprise to the boy's unwavering confidence during the standoff. The ponytailed-haired girl realizes Enril is only stalling for time to let Kanoa escape. A sudden, sharp sound as Seto attacks with her sword while her targets move to evade. A sudden, sharp sound as the girl swings her blade, determined to strike down the maid. A sudden, sharp sound as a pink energy arc follows Seto's aggressive lunge toward her opponent. Debris falls from the surrounding structures as the intensity of the fight causes collateral damage. Enril looks back at Kanoa as the battle lines are drawn between the two groups. Anubis offers Enril a final choice before she proceeds with her plan to kill him. Enril realizes facing 2 high-ranked opponents at once will be an extremely difficult challenge. Loki decides to sit out the fight, expressing his lack of interest in an unfair battle. The blonde boy's sudden withdrawal leaves Anubis and Enril staring at him in disbelief. A sudden, quick sound as Anubis smiles, realizing she can now have her way. A sudden, loud sound as the white-haired assassin celebrates the chance to fight completely alone. Anubis brandishes a massive, glowing scythe, eager to begin her chaotic and violent display. Seto commands Kanoa to take the fight seriously if she hopes to survive. Kanoa contemplates her options, knowing she must defeat Seto to save anyone from the gas. A sudden, quick sound as a command echoes for Kanoa to utilize a hidden ability. Kusunoki warns that a failure to win here will result in the corporation's absolute destruction. The technical support woman asks Kanoa if she can bear never seeing her friend again. Kanoa stares down her opponent while Seto finds her determination to be utterly impossible. Seto mocks the pink-haired girl, asking if she thinks she can weaken her resolve. A sudden, loud sound as Kanoa activates her skill, surrounding herself with glowing energy and petals. Kanoa readies her blade, preparing to unleash a devastating skill against her opponent. Seto reacts with shock as she senses the immense pressure emanating from the maid. A focused declaration echoes, calling for an eclipse at the intersection of blue and red. Kanoa swings her katana gracefully, sending purple flower petals fluttering through the air. A sudden, sharp sound as Kanoa lunges forward, her energy-filled slash narrowly missing a dodging Seto. Descending from above, Kanoa holds her weapon high while petals rain down around her. Seto grins confidently as she blocks a flurry of strikes amidst the slum's urban ruins. A sudden, loud sound as their blades collide. Seto mocks Kanoa's style while the maid remains silent. A digital screen in the darkened control room displays complex data and a mysterious blue container. Monet watches the monitor in disbelief, questioning how the enemy is parrying every single attack. Togashi observes the feed calmly, noting that the battle is proceeding exactly according to his expectations. A shifting perspective emphasizes the need to wait for the perfect moment to overwhelm the enemy.
Kanoa ducks low, narrowly avoiding a horizontal red energy wave that slices through the air.
A sudden, quick sound as Kanoa leaps backward to evade another powerful strike from her opponent. Togashi watches the monitor intently, announcing that the time for the counterattack has finally arrived. Standing beneath a blood-red moon, Kanoa activates her secret skill while purple flowers bloom around her. Seto is caught off guard, reacting with confusion to the sudden and ominous change in atmosphere. A sudden, sharp sound as energy slashes descend upon Seto, overwhelming her defenses in an instant. A sudden, loud sound as a cross-shaped energy blast strikes Seto, splattering blood across the scene. Seto falls bloodied from the air while Kanoa lands gracefully amidst a flurry of petals.
Kanoa reflects on her success, realizing she managed to avoid taking any lethal damage herself.
In the control room, Monet asks Togashi how the girl performed such a complex maneuver.
Togashi explains that Rindo's skill uses petals to accumulate and repeat damage, cutting opponents down. A close-up reveals Monet looking worried as she processes the tactical analysis of the fight.
Togashi explains that physical damage varies by skill level, leaving the girl's ultimate fate uncertain. Kanoa stares at her hand, reflecting on the fact that nothing has happened to her yet. Togashi looks skeptical on the monitor, questioning if the pink-haired girl is truly unharmed. A sudden, heavy sound as a powerful blow knocks Enril back, shocking the nearby maid.
Kanoa rushes to the blue-haired boy's side, frantically asking if he is all right after the hit.
Enril struggles to his feet, insisting to Kanoa that he is no longer a child. Wiping blood from his mouth, Enril tells Kanoa to leave him alone and face her own problems. Anubis grins while wielding her scythe, mockingly suggesting the boy should beg for help. Enril smirks back, suggesting Anubis might be the one needing Loki's help to win. Enraged, Anubis lunges with her scythe, calling the boy stupid for his unwavering arrogance. A sudden, quick sound as Enril slides under the massive blade, narrowly dodging certain death. A sudden, loud sound as the scythe impacts the ground while Enril tumbles away. A sudden, sharp sound as Enril flips through the air, evading a follow-up strike from Anubis.
Enril admits his distaste for the situation, but his eyes glow with a new determination.
Enril prepares his metal claws while Anubis laughs manically, her weapon glowing with red energy.
Loki's eyes widen in surprise as he watches the intense duel from a high ledge.
A sudden, loud sound as Anubis unleashes a manic series of golden cuts through the air. Enril blocks the golden energy storm while Anubis lunges, determined to pierce him through. A sudden, heavy sound as the scythe bites deep into Enril, blood spraying across the alley.
A sudden, sharp sound as Enril is sent sliding backward, his body battered and bleeding.
Kanoa watches in horror as Anubis skips joyfully, celebrating her apparent victory over the boy. Loki's expression turns to fear as he senses a trap, screaming for Anubis to retreat. A sudden, sharp sound as Anubis pauses, her confusion evident as she hears Loki's warning. Enril smiles bloodily, declaring he finally has her as he grabs the scythe's handle. A sudden, sharp sound as Anubis tries to pull away while Enril prepares a counterstrike. A sudden, wet sound as Enril plunges his claws through Anubis, ending the violent confrontation.
Kanoa gasps in horror as Enril laughs bloodily while lying defeated on the cold ground.
Anubis cries out in pain, calling Enril a coward for his dirty and disrespectful tactics. Smirking bloodily, Enril prepares for another strike as the white-haired girl remains vulnerable and crying. Loki watches in stunned silence as Enril lunges toward the defenseless and sobbing white-haired assassin. Loki leaps down while Enril continues his relentless assault on the sobbing and struggling girl. A sudden, loud sound as Enril strikes Anubis, leaving Loki confused by her missing weapon. Enril catches the unconscious white-haired girl as she collapses from the impact of his final blow. Enril mocks Anubis, noting her long-standing weakness to receiving direct and powerful physical hits. Weakly opening her eyes, Anubis asks why her opponent has chosen to spare her life. Enril credits his mercy to someone important who requested he stop killing other people. Enril tells the girl that she was effectively saved by this mysterious person's unwavering kindness. Enril playfully mentions that her savior is currently in the form of a small drone. A sudden, sharp sound as Anubis loses consciousness, finding his cryptic explanation far too vague. Enril walks away while Kanoa watches the violent battle reach its quiet and final conclusion. A soft glow surrounds Kanoa as she smiles, relieved the deadly duel has finally ended. Loki asks if the groups are finished trying to kill each other for the day. A sudden, quick sound as Loki hoists the unconscious Anubis over his shoulder to leave. Loki predicts the white-haired girl will be out for days following her total mental collapse. Loki surveys the area, noting Seto's grave injuries and the urgent need for many doctors. Standing atop a building, a masked boy looks down dismissively at the failed and unhelpful assassins. The horned boy prepares to initiate Plan B as requested by his mysterious superior, Pluto. A sudden, loud sound as an explosion rocks the slums while Kanoa watches in horror. Falling debris fills the air as Kanoa realizes the entire area is under a new attack. A sudden, loud sound as a secondary blast erupts, forcing the group into defensive positions. Kanoa detects a deadly scent and urgently orders everyone to put on their gas masks. A sudden, quick sound as the drone commands Loki to wear his mask immediately for safety. A sudden, quick sound as Loki dons his mask while still carrying his unconscious teammate. Seto lies bloodied and immobile as a gas mask sits just out of her reach. Kanoa rushes to Seto's side, determined to protect her defeated opponent from the incoming gas. Seto tells Kanoa to leave her, but the maid's kindness leaves her utterly and completely bewildered. A sudden, loud sound as more explosions occur, making Kanoa feel like they are being targeted. A sudden, loud sound as the group flees through the crumbling urban ruins of the city. In the control room, Togashi realizes the explosions are tracking Kanoa's every move through the area. Moni urgently requests the use of a larger drone to find the source of the blasts. Moni reports that the signal is failing due to the intense wind from the nearby explosions. The corporate director asks for permission to activate the drone's internal signal amplification device immediately. The director observes Kanoa's choice to fight, noting a single looming problem with her current plan. A sudden, loud sound as the attacker laughs maniacally, enjoying his violent game of cat and mouse. A sudden, sharp sound as a terrified mother shields her child from the falling building ruins. A man in the streets collapses, desperately gasping for air amidst the toxic green gas. The white-haired attacker celebrates his destruction, comparing the mass slaughter to a fun video game. The group reaches a dead end while Kanoa worries about the safety of the slum's residents. Kanoa realizes she must stop the perpetrator to prevent further casualties among the innocent people. A sudden, loud sound as a blast hits nearby, sending a powerful shockwave through the alley. A sudden, sharp sound as Kanoa clutches her side, feeling a sudden and intense surge of pain. Kanoa wonders if the massive damage from her earlier skill is finally catching up to her. A sudden, heavy sound as Kanoa falls, prompting a worried Enril to check on her. Kanoa insists she is only tired while glowing purple flowers bloom around her once more. Thick black smoke billows into the sky as the devastation of the slums continues unabated. A digital wireframe of the area appears as the technical team loses track of the group. The masked boy dismissively decides to initiate a massive explosion to eliminate every single survivor remaining below. A sudden, loud sound as a massive explosion rips through the neighborhood, terrifying the nearby pink-haired maid. Loki stands shocked while carrying Anubis, as Seto wonders why their own side is targeting them now. Seto doubts their superior would betray them, but Togashi explains that Sid never forgives any mission failures. Togashi asks if the assassins truly understand their fate, while Seto stares in silent and masked terror. Togashi suspects Pluto is behind the gas, but believes Sid likely approved the entire lethal disposal plan. The director reveals that Sid planned to discard the assassins from the very start, leaving Seto speechless. Togashi warns of impending death, while Enril notes they are trapped between the explosions and the gas. Moan's drone hovers nearby as she vows to prevent her precious friends from dying in this tragedy. Seto reacts with total bewilderment, repeating the word friends as if the concept is completely alien. Kanoa defends Monet's sincerity while noting that Enril and Loki are also protecting their injured comrades. Kanoa promises to save Seto, defining friends as people who care for one another's fragile lives. Enril laughs at their shared expressions, noting how much the maid's compassionate nature has finally evolved. A sudden, loud sound as more explosions occur, prompting Enril to suggest they quickly climb the wall. Togashi commands the group to remain perfectly still while his next tactical phase is put into action. A sudden, heavy sound as a massive mechanical craft looms overhead, baffling the confused and tired maid. Standing on the high balcony, the masked boy stares in horror at the massive hovering mechanical device. Togashi instructs the group to stay calm as they prepare to initiate their secret plan immediately. Enril questions the old man's vague plan while the drone prepares to emit a powerful signal pulse. A sudden humming sound as the massive drone focuses a glowing orb of blue energy toward the alley. A sudden, quick sound as energy discharges, causing the masked boy to panic at the strange sight. A sudden, loud sound as Togashi gives the command to release a massive and destructive electromagnetic signal. A sudden buzzing sound as the air distorts around Enril and Kanoa during the intense signal pulse. A sudden, sharp sound as the boy's tablet explodes, ruining his equipment and halting his deadly attack. The attacker panics as his gear fails, realizing the signal wave has neutralized every single electronic device. A sudden, crackling sound as the boy's monitor glitches and fails due to the intense electronic interference. A sudden, sobbing sound as the masked boy collapses, devastated by his failure to complete the mission. the white-haired boy weeps in terror, certain that his superior, Pluto, will be absolutely furious now. The explosions finally cease, leaving Kanoa and Enril to observe the sudden and eerie silence in ruins. A sudden, quick sound as Monet celebrates their safety and explains how the signal disabled all electronics. Kanoa looks utterly confused by the technical explanation of signals and the drone's complex amplification device. Enril realizes the signal wave also deactivated their protective gas masks and Monet's primary control drone. Loki observes the stillness while Enril suggests they wait for the organization's medical division to arrive. Togashi warns them that waiting is too dangerous without masks in a place full of poisonous gas. A sudden, wet sound as the group discovers a blood-spattered wall and frantically calls for Anubis. Mon urgently announces her intention to call for emergency medical help to save their many injured comrades. Togashi argues help is too far away, while Kanoa reports that the girl's breathing is slowing down.
Loki shouts at Anubis, desperately begging the unconscious and bleeding girl not to die right now.
Togashi tells Kanoa to find a store called Flower Garden in Area 18 immediately for assistance. Togashi gives Kanoa a secret code regarding his dinner plans to tell the restaurant's mysterious worker.
A sudden humming sound as lights flicker across the desolate and ruined neighborhood of the slums.
A sudden panting sound as Enril runs through the debris, following Kanoa toward their new destination. A sudden, quick sound as Kanoa stops to verify if she has finally reached the correct building. The group finds a closed Chinese restaurant with a red sign clearly labeled as Flower Garden. A sudden, loud sound as Kanoa informs the restaurant staff that they need immediate medical shelter. Carrying the injured Seto, Kanoa encounters a woman in a chef's uniform outside the closed shop.
Kanoa delivers the cryptic message that Kenny is going to be late for dinner as instructed.
A sudden, sharp sound as the chef reacts with an intense and suspicious look at Kanoa. A sudden, quiet sound as Anubis remains unconscious while being carried through the dark, narrow alley. The worker reveals she requested help and tells the group to follow the slum doctor's instructions. A sudden, quick sound as the medical staff rushes through the hallways while the chef orders them to prepare the pods. Carrying the injured Seto, Kanoa wonders aloud about the mysterious composition tube the woman mentioned. A sudden, heavy sound as the worker slams the phone receiver down after completing her call. A sudden, clicking sound as the woman dials the rotary phone to activate a secret mechanism. The chef speaks into the handset while Kanoa stands nearby, still supporting her unconscious opponent. The woman orders several Chinese dishes, prompting Enril to question if she truly intends to eat during this crisis.
A sudden, loud sound as a heavy rumble shakes the restaurant while the group watches the wall begin to move.
A sudden, grinding sound as a hidden passage reveals a secret laboratory tucked away behind the kitchen walls.
The woman orders the group to bring the injured inside immediately to begin their emergency treatment.
The group enters the high-tech facility where advanced medical pods are prepared to heal their wounded comrades. A sudden, soft sound as a hand pats a shoulder, startling the blue-haired boy during the tense moment.
The chef tells the boys to wait upstairs while she prepares the patients for their cellular restoration treatment.
A sudden whirring sound as the composition tube engages, initiating a process that restores damaged cells to their original state.
The pods use a specialized enzyme liquid from Eris Corporation to accelerate the healing of the submerged patients.
A sudden bubbling sound as the white-haired girl is treated by the system Togashi and Yamato developed.
Kanoa looks confused as the woman explains that the single restoration unit takes 20 hours to finish.
The composition tube is capable of fully healing any injury or infection, no matter how severe the damage. Turning her attention to Seto, the woman announces that the girl's deep wounds will require immediate surgery. Kanoa questions if a cook is truly capable of performing complex surgery under general anesthesia. The woman explains that a public hospital would invite government suspicion and unwanted inspectors into the slums. Togashi disguised the facility as a Chinese restaurant to hide the funding and explain the constant flow of people. Kanoa asks if the woman is an Ares employee, but her response remains mysterious and guarded. The woman, glowing with romantic energy, recalls how much Togashi loves her despite his gruff exterior. Kanoa finds the woman's sentimental story about television dramas absolutely disgusting while observing the restaurant sign. Clad in surgical scrubs, the woman begins the operation to stabilize the injured girl's deep wounds. The surgeon works with focused precision, her eyes revealing years of medical experience despite her current occupation. A sudden, rhythmic sound as the medical monitors beep, confirming that the patient is stable and recovering. A sudden, soft sound as Seto finally wakes up, finding herself bandaged and lying in a bed. A sudden slurping sound as Enril eats his noodles and invites the waking girl to join their dinner. Seto sits up weakly, complaining that she has no appetite and that the room smells of garlic. Enril enjoys the garlic, expressing his belief that Anubis will also enjoy the meal once she recovers.
Kanoa informs Seto that Anubis is stable and expected to wake up the following day.
Seto warns that healing them might be a mistake, as they may simply try to kill the group again. Kanoa insists that fulfilling Monet's wish to help others is the only thing that matters to her. Seto reflects on her own ambition to be the top assassin while the group finishes their meal. Kanoa explains that their wishes differ because Seto's goal is selfish, while hers focuses on protecting friends.
Enril and Loki vow to keep helping their rivals, motivated by Marine's desire for everyone to survive. A sudden, sharp sound as the door opens and the woman enters, surprised to see the patient awake.
The woman reports that the area has stabilized and Ares employees are investigating the recent betrayal. The investigation aims to find evidence of NT's involvement, proving Togashi will go to any length for results. Staring at an empty bowl, the woman notes that Togashi has never been one to play by the rules. A sudden, shimmering sound as Kanoa recalls a story about Togashi's past defiance of the organization. The woman confirms that Togashi's reputation is exactly as Kanoa heard from Sick.
The woman reveals a dark secret, stating that Togashi once killed one of his own fellow assassins. Kanoa reacts with shock, unable to believe the kind old man could commit such a violent act.
The woman explains that the murder was committed to protect someone very important to Togashi.
Kanoa listens in silence, her eyes wide as she processes the weight of Togashi's complicated past.
The woman decides to tell the full story, starting from the day a handsome young Togashi escaped. When Togashi was 16, he and his classmate Naishi successfully fled from the control of the organization. The two boys survived by robbing people in the slums, using their training to endure a lawless life. A sudden sliding sound as a woman with brown hair turns toward a customer entering her shop. Two robbers enter the restaurant, and the brown-haired boy demands the woman lead them to the register. The thief finds the earnings while the woman begs him to stop, but his blonde companion tastes the food. The blonde boy is overwhelmed by the delicious flavor of the fried rice he just sampled. The blonde boy addresses his companion as Nashi, while the brown-haired thief suggests they murder the cook. The blonde boy decides they are not robbing the place, startling the cook with his sudden change. He explains that since he ate her food, they cannot rob her and might cause the shop's closure.
Both the cook and Naishi are utterly bewildered by the blonde boy's unexpected display of morality. The blonde boy stares intensely at the woman and asks if she prepared the meal herself.
She nervously explains the owner left early, so she cooked her own dinner for herself. The blonde boy tells Nashi they are leaving and offers him a share of his own money. Nashi fumes about being bossed around and threatens the cook not to call the police. Kenny began to understand the value of money while Nashi's greedy nature grew during their time together. Kenny eventually wiped out the mafia that controlled the slums after several months had passed. He founded the Eris Corporation, but Naishi was no longer by his side during his rise. Kenny returned to the restaurant every week to eat, yet he never mentioned Nashi to the cook. The woman recalls getting together with Kenny back when she was still a poor medical student. Kenny offered to cover her college expenses if she agreed to live with and cook for him. The woman reflects on how that blunt offer was Kenny's unique way of proposing to her. She jokes about grabbing him by the stomach while the boys wonder if that literally hurt him. Kanoa asks if Togashi killed Nashi when he founded Eris, but the woman says it happened later.
Nashi founded a rival mafia of terrorists, eventually launching attacks against the territory of the Eris Corporation.
The woman explains that Togashi felt responsible for Naishi's greed and believed he had to kill him. Enril questions if the conflict was more complex than a simple fight between two former friends. The chef agrees, noting that the situation between the two men was far from a simple rivalry. A sudden, creaking sound as the door opens after the woman mentions Togashi's secrets involved Sid. Monet rushes into the room and joyfully hugs Kanoa, expressing her relief that the girl is safe.
Monet acknowledges Seto's presence and identity, while the injured girl reacts with a look of surprise.
A sudden, snoring sound as Kanoa falls fast asleep while sitting in the middle of dinner. The white-haired girl sleeps peacefully, her exhaustion finally catching up to her after the intense battle. Monet smiles warmly while looking at the sleeping Kanoa and suggests they return to their home soon. 2 days pass, shifting the scene to the massive and futuristic skyscraper that houses Ares Corporation headquarters. Kanoa rests in a large bed while a small white cat sits quietly by her side.
A sudden licking sound as the white cat wakes Kanoa up by affectionately licking her face.
The white-haired girl rubs her eyes and stretches as she wakes up in the bright bedroom.
Monet greets her with a warm smile and a fresh cup of coffee to start the morning.
A sudden growling sound as Kanoa announces her hunger and requests a meal from her friend. Kanoa happily eats a bowl of rice while cute rabbit patterns fill the background around her. Kanoa asks about Monet's whereabouts, and the chef explains she went shopping at Nakaku on Sunday. The woman explains that young people enjoy shopping for fun, even when they don't need anything specific. Looking out at the clear blue sky, Kanoa wonders if wandering through shops could truly be fun. Monet walks through the busy city streets, wondering what kind of birthday gift she should buy Kanoa. Following from the shadows, Enril watches Marnay as she continues her shopping trip through the downtown area.
Enril eats a lollipop while worrying that his secret protection mission makes him look like a stalker.
A sudden, quick sound as Enril prepares to move, but he is startled by something nearby. A sudden, sliding sound as a blur passes by, causing Enril to react with intense shock. A white-haired figure in a lab coat suddenly seizes Maureen, muffling her screams with a gloved hand. Enril shouts for Monet as he watches her being forcibly dragged away by the mysterious assailant. Monet struggles desperately against her captor, her eyes wide with terror as she is restrained. A sinister red-haired woman in white robes looms over the scene while gloating about the chaos. A sudden, sharp sound as Enril reacts with pure shock to the environment around him. Enril stares in disbelief as the ground and buildings begin to warp and distort unnervingly. Tumbling through the sky, Enril screams in confusion as the entire world twists out of shape. The landscape continues to warp as Enril realizes his sense of balance has completely vanished. A voice calls out to Enril, echoing through the distorted void as his world falls apart. Monique pleads for help, her terrified face appearing as she is held by an unseen captor. A sudden, muffled sound as a white-haired assailant muzzles Moan, leaving Enril frozen in horror. A sudden, quick sound as an attacker strikes, sending a shockwave that knocks Enril backward. Enril lies on the ground, questioning if the distortion stopped as a mysterious voice dismisses him. A sudden, heavy sound as the red-haired woman kicks Enril, promising to send him flying. A sudden, snapping sound as a hand reaches out, its fingers twisting in a strange motion. The red-haired woman declares she has caught him as purple energy surges through the air. Enril hits the ground as the distortion returns, leaving him reeling from the strange, repetitive attack. Staring at his enemy, Enril wonders if the distortion is linked to the woman's handframe. The woman explains that everyone has someone important as she asks for forgiveness for her actions. A sudden, echoing sound as Enril screams for Moan while she is taken into the darkness. Kanoa eats cake while news reports confirm the Naida Trap Company's involvement in the recent explosion. The broadcast reveals that Aris Corporation's private investigation found evidence of equipment imported from the U.S. Authorities have raided the headquarters while the search for the elusive representative named Pluto continues. The woman praises Tagashi's team and mentions that Kanoa played a vital role in the success. The woman asks Kanoa what Tagashi's wife was like while the girl continues eating her cake. Kanala explains that the wife claimed grabbing Kenny by the stomach led to his marriage proposal. Kanoa asks for the definition of a proposal, and the woman describes it as a lifelong vow. The woman explains that a vow is made when two people decide to live for one another. Smiling warmly, the woman defines it as a declaration of love that starts a new family. Kanoa reflects silently on the concepts of starting a family and making a true declaration of love. Kanoa recalls how the organization discarded assassins, leaving them to starve and die without any purpose. Staring at a surveillance camera, Kanoa wonders why parents would throw children away into such lives. The brown-haired woman looks down with a saddened expression, her eyes filled with deep, silent regret. A sudden, crackling sound as Tagashi's voice interrupts, telling Kanoa to hurry to the building's rooftop. Tagashi appears on a digital screen, mentioning a terminal update before ordering her to meet him. Kanoa claims to understand, prompting the man to scold her for lying about her own comprehension. The woman shouts that she and Moni both care deeply for Kanoa in their own way. The woman hugs Kanoa tightly, explaining that she views the young girl as Monet's little sister. A sudden, soft sound as Kanoa leans into the hug, quietly repeating the words, little sister. Determined to stay with her friend forever, Kanoa looks toward the horizon with a newfound resolve. Kanoa announces her plan to propose to Mono today, leaving the woman absolutely stunned and speechless. A sudden, chiming sound as the elevator opens and Kanoa steps onto the rooftop in uniform. Kanoa answers her phone, but her expression shifts to shock as a voice mentions Monet's custody. A sudden, sharp sound as Kanoa stops in her tracks, her eyes wide with mounting dread. A sudden, frantic sound as Kanoa screams Monet's name into the phone, fearing for her friend. A video shows Moni tied up as the voice reveals they are at the Prime Minister's residence. A blue-haired boy named Ida introduces himself with a sinister smile, holding a glowing digital device. Kanoa demands Mona's release, but Ida insists on introducing the rest of his dangerous business partners. Ada introduces his companions, Lambda and Pi, while gears turn ominously in the dark, smoky background. Eda boasts about Lambda's incredible strength and encourages him to begin their planned display of power. Kanoa asks what they intend to do, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. The white-haired man approaches the captive Moan, arrogantly claiming to be the coolest of the group. A sudden, heavy sound as Eda emphasizes Lambda's strength while the man stands over the helpless Monet. A sudden, crushing sound as Lambda activates his mechanical arm, shattering the floor with immense, violent force. Eda activates his tablet with a smirk, ordering Kanoa to watch as the situation escalates. A sudden humming sound as the digital device activates, glowing with a bright turquoise energy. A sudden frantic sound as Kanoa screams in terror while watching Moni slide toward the edge. Kanoa asks what he plans to do, but the white-haired man boasts he is the coolest. Seto observes that the opponent is extremely strong. A sudden crushing sound as Lambda activates his mechanical arm, shattering the floor with immense force. Eda activates his tablet with a smirk, ordering Kanoa to watch as the situation escalates. A sudden humming sound as the digital device activates, glowing with a bright turquoise energy. A sudden crashing sound as an explosion knocks Kanoa down while Eda laughs at her struggle. A sudden panting sound as Kanoa gasps for breath, falling to her knees in sheer exhaustion. Eda laughs and remarks that it is a good thing the girl did not fall yet. Eda explains that in exactly 2 hours and 24 minutes, Monet will crash into the ground. Kanoa vows to kill every one of them before the time limit on the countdown expires. Ada claims she has not grasped the situation and offers her a single chance to negotiate. Kanoa questions the offer, but Ida demands a trade, Kenny's head for the captive girl's life. Kanoa reflects on the request for Kenny's head as the man drinks tea in the sunlight. Kanoa acknowledges Kenny's incredible strength and realizes taking him down in 2 hours is nearly impossible. Eda walks away, threatening to drop Monet immediately if Kanoa is not interested in the deal. A sudden creaking sound as the chair tilts, showing Moan tied up over the vast city. A sudden, sharp sound as Kanoa agrees to the deal, begging them to stop the descent. Kanoa watches Kenny from afar, wondering if she can win or if she should talk first. Kanoa concludes that she has no choice but to kill him when someone suddenly spots her. Kanoa turns in shock as Loki and Seto appear on the rooftop wearing stolen security uniforms. Kanoa asks why they are here, and Loki explains they stole outfits from some Ares guards. Seto adds that she merely did not want blood on her own clothes. Seto stares intensely at Kanoa, her purple eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation they face. Loki explains that Pluto wants both Kanoa and Kenny dead, and the weakest will be killed. Loki reveals that the people who kidnapped Moni are actually cyborgs that were created by Pluto. Loki explains they are victims of illegal drugs, noting that Enril saw them during the earlier encounter. A sudden grabbing sound as Kanoa seizes Seto, asking if Enril is currently together with Monet. Seto explains he lost sight of them during the kidnapping. Kanoa questions why they want to know and if they are hunting Enril for his betrayal. Seto explains that they reported the betrayal to Sid and were immediately ordered to capture him. Loki notes that Enril is a genius at hiding, but wonders why he dared to contact them. Kanoa claims she does not know his location. Loki tells her they already know that and explains they came here on Sid's specific orders. Kanoa looks at them with a confused expression, asking why Sid would give such an order. A sudden stuttering sound as the pair struggles to explain before Loki shouts they came to help. Loki mentions they told Sid about Pluto's murder attempt and the secret plan for the explosion. A narrator explains that with Sid, even the smallest secret is considered a grave act of betrayal. Loki explains Sid wants to erase Pluto using Eris, so they happen to have the same target. He warns Kanoa not to think they came just to help her. Kanoa stares at them with deep suspicion, asking if they are sure Sid's target is Pluto. A sudden huffing sound as Seto turns away, claiming they will find another way to Pluto. Loki looks back at the two girls and sighs, grumbling that both of them are very troublesome. A sudden slapping sound as Seto hits Loki for his words before Loki joyfully grabs them both. Kanoa asks Loki what he is doing as he pulls her closer with a mischievous grin. Loki leans in close to the girls, his expression full of playful confidence despite the surrounding danger. A sudden smacking sound as the girls hit Loki, calling his behavior disgusting while he complains. Kanoa looks at her companions with a serious expression while they continue their loud, chaotic bickering. A sudden, firm sound as Kanoa grabs their arms and desperately begs them to save Monet. Loki agrees with a smug look while Seto huffs, prompting Kanoa to quietly offer her thanks. A sudden, heavy sound as Loki pulls them into a hug, declaring that they are even. Seto shouts that it is disgusting. Loki leads the way toward the tower, determined to help his friends finish their dangerous mission. Kanoa stops for a moment, her eyes widening as she remembers something important before they leave. Kanoa stares down with a confused expression as a question mark floats above her head. The brown-haired woman suggests needing help from a certain man while cafe tables sit empty. Kenny smokes while watching the three children depart as the countdown continues its steady descent. A skyscraper looms as Kusunoki complains about a detective taking even the general-purpose tools. Kusunoki answers a phone call, offering to transfer the caller regarding the incident involving Pluto. Kanoa identifies herself as Order and urgently requests help because Monet has been kidnapped. Kusunoki reacts with intense shock, his eyes wide as he listens to the urgent news. Kusunoki shouts in disbelief upon hearing the confirmation that Monet was indeed kidnapped. Kusunoki reflects on Sid's refusal to follow instructions during a life-or-death situation. Kusunoki rejects the name Order while Kanoa warns him not to contact Kenny about this. The group runs while Kanoa explains that alerting Kenny would get the captive Monet killed. Kusunoki asks for clarification as Kanoa demands access to the Prime Minister's official residence tower. Kusunoki is shocked by the location as Kanoa confirms Monet is tied up there. Kusunoki notes Kanoa's uncharacteristic desperation, realizing the gravity of the situation. Kusunoki recalls Monet's potential while worrying about his lack of data on the tower.
Kanoa questions Kusunoki's competence compared to Togashi, prompting a sudden and insulted reaction.
Kusunoki arrogance flares as he claims superiority over Togashi and promises contact in 5 minutes.
Kanoa runs through the city with a sudden, quick tapping sound as she wonders about him.
Kusunoki prepares to hack into the tower system with a sudden, rhythmic clicking sound.
Kusunoki works at his multi-screen terminal with a sudden, rhythmic clicking sound as he types.
Kusunoki laments his transition into becoming a black hat hacker as he continues his typing.
Loki points toward Enril as the group arrives at the base of the massive skyscraper. Enril sits huddled against a wall in a state of deep, silent, and dark depression. The group approaches Enril, who remains silent in the shadows as their footsteps tap lightly.
Enril tearfully apologizes to Kanoa, confessing that he failed in his attempt to save Monet. Kanoa acknowledges that Enril's contact with Seto was vital to getting help for their mission. Kanoa gently comforts Enril with a sudden soft patting sound as she expresses her gratitude.
Enril looks up with wide, hopeful eyes as Kanoa reassures him that everything is all right.
Kanoa smiles warmly, telling Enril he did nothing wrong as he quietly whispers her name. Loki boasts about his arrival, while Seto reveals he actually begged for the fun mission.
Loki laughs off being caught in a lie while Kanoa glares at him with nerve.
Enril thanks his companions for speaking to Sid on his behalf with a determined look. Enril reminds everyone that Moni still needs saving, which Kanoa solemnly acknowledges with a nod.
Kanoa declares their mission to save Monet with less than 2 hours remaining on the countdown.
A massive construction crane stands beside the towering residence building under a bright blue sky.
The group gathers at the base of the unguarded skyscraper to begin their dangerous infiltration. Kusunoki reports via comms with a sudden rhythmic beeping sound that the tower was already hacked. Kusunoki explains the hack used his own code, realizing Pluto's malicious involvement in the system. Enril spots guards inside the building and warns Kanoa with a sudden, sharp tapping sound. Kanoa slides low to the ground in her maid outfit with a sudden, quick sliding sound. Kanoa stands over dead guards, confirming that her suspicions about their fate were indeed correct. Enril proposes a distraction plan while Kusunoki agrees to guide them past any remaining cameras. Enril explains he will distract a tricky Origin member, while Seto expresses her doubts. Enril confidently winks, claiming he can relate to the enemy he is planning to lure out. The scene shifts to the massive skyscraper as a voice questions relating to an enemy.
The antagonists watch surveillance screens from within the darkness of their high-tech headquarters.
Ada observes Enril's persistent presence through a monitoring lens with a sudden, quiet sliding sound.
Enril shouts a declaration to take back the person most important to him with resolve.
Ada laughs at Enril's sentimentality while Pai watches the scene with a cold, silent gaze. Pai offers to capture Enril while Ida prepares to interrogate him about Kanoa and others.
Eda floats in a digital space, lamenting that her heartfelt gesture was misunderstood and noting that Enril could have lived on without seeing his loved one die.
A digital timer displays the remaining time as 01:32:23 while blood spatters the metal floor. The scene shifts as the group begins their infiltration into the heart of the tower. A sudden shimmering blue wave sounds as a holographic field activates before Enril in the room. Eda looks down as Enril remarks that while he thought she was cool, she is cute too. Eda ignores his compliment and walks away, leaving Enril to grumble that his praise was totally ignored. Enril claims telepathy led him there, but Ida questions if Kanoa actually told him about the place. A sudden whooshing sound as Enril dodges through the digital space, while Eda remarks on the messy situation. A sudden, sharp sound as a beam fires, prompting Enril to complain while Ida demands Kanoa's location. Enril falls with a sudden, startled shout of "Wah!" while Eda finds his distress quite shocking. A sudden, heavy thudding sound as Enril hits the floor after his fall in the digital area. Enril recovers, refocusing his efforts on the dangerous infiltration of the high-tech Ares facility. Enril begs for Moan's return to stall for time, but Eda questions if Pluto has any intention of doing that. Enril's blue eyes widen in shock as he processes the cruelty of the antagonist's cold words. Eda states it doesn't matter if Kanoa keeps her promise because Monet's fate is sealed and she will die. Kusunoki explains over the comms that he discovered a secret elevator in the hallway for authorized people. Kusunoki explains the cameras aren't on a loop and Pluto is unaware that this secret elevator even exists. Kusunoki points out the target as the trio arrives at the hidden elevator's secure doors. Kusunoki provides the activation code over the comms to Kanoa as they prepare to enter the elevator. Seto mocks Kanoa for being bad with numbers while the blonde-haired man laughs and enters the code. Kanoa asks if there are cameras on the rooftop, prompting Kusunoki to ask why they aren't heading for the top floor. Kusunoki explains that while cameras should be on the helipad, the wiring is still being set up and they aren't active. The group reaches the roof as Kusunoki questions their plan, while Kanoa begins assembling a large weapon.
Kanoa brandishes a grappling gun to end things quickly while the blonde-haired man protests the lack of process.
The blonde-haired man checks the weapon settings while Seto looks out over the city from the railing. The man corrects the settings before a hologram of Pai appears, asking Kanoa if she has Kenny's head yet. Kanoa explains it is not simple and she is waiting for the right opening. Pi warns that if she takes that long, Marine will end up dying 1 hour and 12 minutes from now.
A sudden roaring blast sound as Kanoa fires the grappling gun, declaring she doesn't need that long.
A sudden, metallic clanking sound as the hooks latch onto the distant rooftop where Marine is being held.
Kanoa, Sato, and the blonde-haired man leap off the ledge and slide down the cables toward the building. The trio hurtles through the air, ziplining across the vast skyline under a clear, bright sky.
Sato grips the cable tightly, sliding down toward the enemy building with intense, silent determination.
Kanoa shouts, "Here I come," as she nears the end of the cable with a fierce expression.
Pi reacts in shock as the group arrives, shouting for everyone to move as they reach the roof.
Kanoa reaches out desperately as she lands on the rooftop, shouting Monet's name toward the bound girl.
Kanoa's hand stretches toward her friend as she prepares to make a daring rooftop rescue.
A close-up of a hand reaching out, highlighting the desperate urgency of the unfolding mission. Pi reacts in shock as the girl in the maid outfit lands and swings her weapon. A sudden scraping sound as Kanoa lands firmly, her eyes fixed on the mocking antagonists. Pi stands over the bound Moan and remarks that Kanoa has really done it this time.
The blonde-haired man and Sato land as Kanoa reflects on the organization's mutually beneficial relationship with Eris.
Kanoa declares that corporate interests and relationships do not matter in their quest for rescue.
Kanoa claims they are just friends, but her companions protest that the word makes them feel itchy.
Pi observes that for people like them, there are nothing but relationships of interest.
Pi claims emotional arguments prove human weakness and questions if they can defeat the Origin.
Pi laughs while declaring that they are special beings superior to ordinary humans of mere flesh.
The blonde-haired man accepts the title of representative for the humans made of flesh from Tokyo.
The blonde-haired man notes that there is something really unsettling about the surrounding area. The blonde-haired man charges forward, shouting that he wants to smack a handsome guy who thinks highly of himself. A sudden, thunderous cracking sound as he punches Pi. A sudden booming sound as the antagonist crashes into the floor from the massive punch.
Enril and Pi hit the floor, both quickly recovering from the impact of their initial collision.
Pi launches a fierce kick that sends Enril reeling backward with a sudden, powerful, and luminous flash.
Enril smirks while acknowledging Pi's impressive strength despite his refined appearance, showing his unwavering battle spirit.
Pi pauses with a look of mild amusement to ask if the comment was intended as praise. Pi dismissively accepts the compliment, while acknowledging that being praised by a complete stranger is quite unusual.
Pi's right arm begins to transform into a massive, armored limb, pulsing with a sudden, crackling sizzle.
Pi proudly reveals his monstrous arm, claiming that spreading his power across the world makes him happy.
Enril watches in horror as Pi lunges forward, realizing his opponent is more beast than refined man. Pi unleashes a relentless barrage of heavy punches, moving with the ferocity of a wild, unrestrained animal.
Kanoa orders Tyr to save her companion while she prepares to personally hold back the laughing Lambda. Kanoa worries about Lambda's voice-based powers as he mocks the rapidly depleting lifespan of the captive Monet. Tyr questions Lambda's hesitation while Kanoa prepares to unleash a high-level digital code to end the fight. Kanoa activates a powerful combat sequence, her eyes glowing red as digital petals swirl around her form. Kanoa creates several speed mirages to overwhelm her foe, vowing to neutralize the advantage of Lambda's powerful voice. Kanoa charges forward with her blade drawn, moving with a sudden, high-pitched and whistling whoosh through the air. Kanoa's attack is met with a look of shock as Lambda retaliates with a blinding, surging blue energy. Lambda smirks as he analyzes Kanoa's predictable tactics, revealing he has already studied her time sequence combination moves. Lambda confidently dismisses Kanoa's efforts, declaring that her current level of skill is entirely useless against him. Pluto watches the battle through his monitors, expressing his deep disappointment at the slow progress of his underlings. Pluto laughs while sitting comfortably, noting that time is money, as the countdown reaches 55 minutes.